live many in a house. Now they have come to visit their relatives in our area, in various other estates. So there's already that profiling that was bad enough even before. Now we are talking about stigmatizing them. It's going to be this one.
And the unfortunate bit, though we are still dealing with a virus this time around, is that Eastleigh and that area is not new to discrimination.
Yep.
So this will just arouse past experiences.
Yep. It's going to bring that up. Remember the way they were taken into the Kasarani concentration camp? Now you're saying you've locked down Eastleigh, nobody comes in, nobody leaves. People who stay in Eastleigh should remain in Eastleigh. We're enforcing this one.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they've taken that into consideration, the difficulty that they'll be faced with to be able to do this one. So let's see.
Let's see. Today will be the day when we'll know clearly what the situation is like.
Right. So we also saw some very interesting things yesterday with the removal of quarantine fees. Rather, the government is going to take care of that little detail. It seems that we're going to see then an increase, first of all, in numbers of infected cases, because then perhaps people will readily present themselves for testing, as they've been urged, perhaps. And if that happens, we'll see a surge in the numbers. That's for sure. Because now if testing goes in the way in which they want it to now, and people are promised that even if you do go into quarantine, you won't pay, perhaps we'll see more. But we still have the overwhelming sentiment that people would rather be quarantined
at
in
home.
their places of comfort at home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My concern with that declaration by government that will quarantine, there are two issues here. There's quarantine, that's for people who are suspected.
Yep.
And then there's isolation for people who have already been diagnosed and identified to have the coronavirus. So are you saying you're covering both?
Yeah.
Well, when they're saying quarantine, was
and
it
isolation,
quarantine and isolation, or was it just quarantine? Because if it's just quarantine, then it beats the purpose.
Were they not taking care of people in public facilities when they were in isolation?
CKU is public facility.
But that's where people still got a bill.
Still got a bill.
People still got a bill, and that was somebody in isolation. So they needed to be clear, in my opinion, and say all costs associated with COVID-19
in public facilities
is being covered by the government.
Well,
and to come out clearly and give the option of home-based care. Remember yesterday when they were saying that for Kenyans coming from other countries, if they had gone to seek medical treatment, when they come in the country, they'd be quarantined in a place where their doctors would choose and where their doctors would have them on follow-up. So if you're giving an option for people who are they are vulnerable, yes, because they'd gone for treatment. But if you're giving an option for that group of people, why not give the option for everyone else?
They even came up with the protocols for home-based care.
They've always had protocols for home-based care since March.
It's there. Yeah. But my main concern with that is that it doesn't factor in community participation. It's not using the community structures. And that's very important to do. We were talking about that yesterday. Using residents associations, Nyumba Kumi, the local Ngao officers and the ward reps from the county government, using the volunteers, the community health volunteers and workers. And this is not factoring in all that. It's not showing how community can help the people who are to stay in quarantine and in isolation, because these people basically require help, and the community can come in and assist them. Say, okay, you guys, you don't need to leave. Just send me a list of what you need. If it's shopping, if it's you have an emergency, you need somebody to run to a chemist, or you need somebody to talk on your behalf and rush you to hospital. Talk to the local, your neighbors, your local neighborhood leadership.
I think what you're seeing is what the government is used to doing. Top-down approach, where we have said this. Remember even yesterday when Matiang'i was addressing the issue of the floods, that, we will forcefully move you if you're not cooperating.
Yep.
But
the language of government is we are forceful. Look, people in Budalangi have been forcefully moved by the water.
So what are you going to
Let's talk about those ones, all right? Now, these are the ones that you're saying are at risk, are at danger. Those are few. You can go and just talk to them and show them, look, this is what's happening elsewhere.
Exactly.
And in fact, even that's not just saying that we will forcefully move you. Just create the structure and say, come here. People will move.
People will move
If you
because
put
they
up a
see-
tent and a proper center and say, this is what's happening, this is where you're going to get food, you're going to get water, you're going to get all your needs sorted,
Treatment.
people will move. If you just tell them, tokeni hapa.
Ama mutajua mimi
Then
ni
you
nani.
invite animosity and say, come and have a seat with us right here, animosity.
Yeah.
And then you get into a situation where people will fight back. Look, it doesn't matter. Now, somebody who's seeing that their whole home has been washed away, or they are facing the potential threat of that happening, they're already at a point whereby they've got a lot to lose, right? And then you want to come and threaten them? My goodness, it's going to be served up, and they'll throw it back at you, and then you'll have situations which you could have avoided.
From the very beginning.
It's the
Let's
same
look
attitude.
at COVID in numbers. Then we look at whether and start the conversation around today's headlines.
All right, so we're inching closer to 4 million cases. 3.8 is what we are at now. 3,822,860 cases now in the world. This does cover deaths of 1.3 million. Of 265,000. But then recovered cases of 1.3 million. Still looking at the United States as the largest contributor to this, and we have an increase of so far they're now at 1.2 million cases with 74,000 deaths. And if you want to look at the numbers that they experienced just over the last 24 hours, quite some, still with New York, that state being the highest. We know that they've tested quite some. They're looking at 1 million plus tests just in New York. But if we look at the day that ended May 6th, 25,459 cases and then 2,528 deaths in the United States. This was just yesterday. All right. Today already having counted about 300 and something cases. Okay. So those are the numbers that we're looking at. And looking at how things may have changed on the African continent, still what you want to consider maintaining some space. South Africa at 7,800 cases, Egypt at 7,500, Morocco at 5,400, and Algeria at 4,900 cases. Nigeria, 3,145 cases. Ghana, 3,091 cases. Again, as we used to, when we looked at this, we thought that, okay, it's flying, it's infecting people at a crazy rate, but still reiterating the point that testing has been ramped up
in Africa.
In Africa. And we see that now more and more countries are starting to test a lot more on a daily basis. Yeah. And that's how we've been able to find out what we have. Does it mean that more people are getting infected? Yes. Have they been tested? Not necessarily.
But it's spreading. But we don't know.
It is spreading.
We don't know how many are at what rate then. Right.
So I was looking at the global map on the distribution of the cases, and you find that the problematic areas have been the Americas and Europe. So the North America region and Europe. And if you look at the development patterns, those are the countries where most development has happened. They're like you developed countries, literally. Yeah. And then when you come to Africa, Southeast Asia, some of the Middle East countries, the countries that are developing and almost developed, these are the countries that have been able to sort of have the virus under control. So for me, I was just thinking, is it that this part of the world we're used to having problems, we've been able to know how to deal with it? Is it that we are not identifying? Is it that the Americas and Europe have been faced by a situation they've never seen before? Is it that the nature of their development is affecting them? Because if you look at New York, could be. But if you look at New York, for example, it's populated, it's a busy urban center. Yep. From your subways, the roads, everywhere is almost, full and crowded. So is it that because of their development that they are suffering more than the rest of the other countries in the world? I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting, that it's Europe and America that is really bearing the brunt. They have like half the total global numbers.
And it doesn't matter their population.
No.
It's basically just looking at their economies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you look at China, okay, now when you look at the numbers in America and Europe, China is still at 82,000. Really, it now looks like it was just a drop in the ocean. Could be that China has been facing pandemics, has had the threat of pandemics over and over again. So their systems are well adjusted and well adapted to react to any pandemics or any threats of a pandemic or an epidemic that comes their way. So that could explain why China and the East Asian countries have their numbers under control.
And India?
India too. They are almost rivaling because in the last 7 days, they reported between 10,000 and just more than 10,000 cases in like a week's time. So by virtue of their population anyway, you expect that their numbers would be a bit high.
Actually,
But
those are low.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about
They have
exactly.
1 billion people.
They have 1 billion people. So this for them is like
Mm.
a drop in the ocean.
I do think we can't ignore the fact, though, that countries in the Western Hemisphere, the US and a lot of European countries, truth be told, did not think that this was going to cross their shores and affect them in the way they did. They ignored the threat that was there and spent a good portion of the first days of this warning other countries around the world that you guys need to keep yourselves in check, without realizing that this thing had already come.
They're playing Big Brother.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just want to look at how they've behaved historically, they didn't think that this one was going to come through.
So India has 52,000 cases out of 1.2 million people tested. So I think India is doing well. Yeah.
52,000 only. And how many deaths?
Just a
So
minute.
1.2 million have been tested.
Yeah.
And
1,785 deaths. So, and remember, the Prime Minister started lockdown quite early.
Yep.
And actually, they almost had the same complaints and issues of lockdown that we did.
Yep.
Because it's just like lockdown and people couldn't travel. You couldn't, those who are working in urban areas and needed to go back to the rural areas couldn't. I remember a story, I think it was on the BBC, where somebody was walking back home. They had no food, nothing. Unfortunately, they died on the way. And there are so many people who are walking
there are
back.
millions actually that wanted to, basically the migrant communities. 17 minutes after 6, let's take a look at weather shortly and then start looking at the headlines. Good morning.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
All right, let's see what conditions are like across the country and the continent and the world. In Nairobi this morning, mostly cloudy conditions at 16 degrees. We are going to see some showers very early today. Highs of 23 and lows of 14. Nyeri is already showering down at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 22, but the showers will last through the day. In Nakuru at 16 degrees, it's mostly cloudy, but yes, to experience showers, highs of 24. In Eldoret, light rain showers being experienced at 14 degrees. Thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's partly cloudy in Kisumu at 21 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 with welcome showers later on. In Mombasa, 25 degrees is mostly cloudy. The forecast is rain for the afternoon with highs of 28. In Malindi, it is coming down already at 26 degrees and it will continue well into the afternoon with highs of 29. Taking a look then into Kampala at 21 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. It will be a wet afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 19. 24 degrees and partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam. 30 degrees the high and lows of 24 with afternoon showers. It's 7 degrees and a foggy morning in Johannesburg. Mostly cloudy conditions prevail in the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 7. Lagos will be clear skies this morning at 28 degrees with highs of 33 and lows of 26. It's cloudy at 8 degrees in New York, getting close to midnight. When it does rise, we'll see partly cloudy conditions throughout the day with highs of 11 and lows of 6. Paris will have clear skies this morning at 11 degrees for most of the morning, highs of 23 and lows of 11. And finally in London, it's clear skies at 8 degrees when the sun comes up, 23 degrees the high and lows of 8 with partly cloudy conditions through the day.
Now, let's take a look at the main
Spice up your
headlines.
life.
Before we do that, today's proverb, this one is from the Eco.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
A chick
Spice
doesn't
up
grow
yourself.
into a cock and be spotted the very day. Explain that. What does that mean? What does the
Mornings
what does it
done
mean?
right.
A chick doesn't grow into a
94.4
cock
Spice
and be
FM,
spotted the very
Nairobi.
day.
You can see somebody's potential from the start.
From the very beginning.
Yeah. You can see success.
You can see someone's character, a baby's character from the very beginning. Or even when you meet someone new, you can tell
There's
who they
something
are.
here.
Yeah.
This is a good one for HR people.
Yeah.
Stop asking me, you tell me about you, just look at me.
And don't ask me to tell you about myself.
And
Yeah.
make your analysis.
You should be able to figure
Tell
it
me
out.
about you. No, just look at me.
Listen to my words.
Yeah, I'll grow into a cock.
Oh,
Just
no.
observe. You can easily foresee the future of something through the character and the telltale signs that it's exhibiting today.
It's a patriarchal quote, though.
It is.
Yeah.
Why
a
can I
cock?
grow into a
Okay,
hen?
Why-
so
why
we
not
can,
a
just,
hen?
we can just say a hen then.
Look, the patriarchy still lives.
Yeah.
Rules.
Yeah.
Okay, the headlines. What do you want to
Warning
start
shots.
with? Eh.
Targeted lockdown. Determined to curb the spread of COVID-19, the government finally locks down Nairobi's Eastleigh and Mombasa's Old Town suburbs. With the yellow card flashed, Kenyans have to pull all stops to arrest the spread of the virus in their areas, lest they be locked down too. Remember yesterday, Eric, you specifically said, the CS has been threatening with I'll beat you. And we still see yet another one.
Ntakuchapa.
And there'll be more. We've locked down Eastleigh and Old Town. But look, if you don't, there'll
This
be
will
stricter
continue.
measures.
This will continue. Matiang'i even said, look, we have been asked, we've been advised, now you're just forcing the government's hand to start on this. And more is going to come. The two headlines, this Nation headline is how Eastleigh went south. They basically are showing, look, these are measures. We could see this happening, and it's finally come to pass that this was going to happen, tighter measures for these hotspots. However, now, let's talk about just like everything else with government and this COVID-19, the enforcement of this.
The Nation headline sounds a bit cheeky.
How Eastleigh went south.
How Eastleigh went south. That's a bbrilliant headline.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, considering what we're hearing on
Yeah,
social media,
yeah.
with South.
South.
So how
and
easily
go to the south side. That's a very cheeky headline.
The trouble started with one infection, but a lethal combination of habit and indiscipline, where residents have ignored social distancing rules. They continue to crowd in shops and gather in homes to break the fast, and disregard guidelines on handling the dead has seen the infections get out of control.
Okay, so I'm looking at this and just thinking about Old Town, Eastleigh, and you find that this is where the Muslim community is.
There's a predominant Muslim community.
Yes, in this area. So I'm quickly just thinking, what about the other areas in Kenya where it's predominantly Muslim community? Because the culture, the practices are the same. Everyone is observing Ramadan the same.
Yeah.
Is it also happening in those areas, or are we waiting to see what happens here, then we do a reaction?
This is the problem.
Side?
It's reactionary in this the calling of this lockdown, because you see that a number of cases are emanating from these areas. Then you decide to lock it down, because you're absolutely right. The reason cannot be that cultural practices are taking place in these areas during this holy month of Ramadan. That can't be the reason. The reason has got to be that we're putting a lockdown because we see that more cases could erupt from here. Now, if that is the reason, that it's the cultural and traditional practice that we see happening at this time, like you say, then there should be many other places that should be locked down, if that's the reason.
There should be a
It's
proactive move.
Additionally, so a combination of things, habit and culture. So, Eastleigh is a buzzing business hub. People were still going about their businesses as usual. Remember, even the business community themselves had to come up and say, all right, guys, so let's close down some of the big malls. Let's reduce our business activities. But as this photo shows on The Nation, the headline, the front page of The Nation, it just shows people were busy everywhere. Ignoring social distancing. It's a very busy place, so people are still coming out in large numbers. So you're considering the population of this particular area, you're considering the daily activity of these particular people, it's trade and all, and they're still coming out to trade in large numbers. And then now, add on to all these things the fact that Ramadan has started, and there's what we always do during Ramadan. During Iftar, we come together to break the fast together. So now this is adding into more problems. So I think it's just a combination. This is in addition to what we've been seeing and what we've been trying to caution, and now we are seeing the numbers coming out of Eastleigh, and numbers are growing. If we don't do something now, these numbers are gonna spiral out of control.
Then I think we should extend that lockdown to other similar areas, because if you look at that population, and the area where Eastleigh is, and the areas, such other areas where either they are near informal settlements or at the informal settlements, you see the same kind of population.
Yeah.
It is difficult to observe physical distancing in such an area. If you compare that and, let's say, your upmarket roundup, it's going to be difficult to observe any form of physical distancing in these particular areas. So probably the government should rethink how to do this, how to enforce. I
think the only option
measures
that the government would have, if not this one, is going into a full lockdown of everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So a full countrywide lockdown. That should have happened on the 13th of March.
13th of March.
Yeah. That's when we should have just said, all right, so we found the first case, let's lock this thing down. And we know that there are people who have not observed self-quarantine as they arrived into the country. So let's just lock this thing down. Let's start observing. Let's do targeted testing at that point, and then start easing up the measures. Now, here we are. If we say that they look up at other areas, it's going to be very difficult. They'll go into Pangani, into Pipeline, into Embakasi, into Kawangware already. Is a hotspot.
Kibra has cases. If you now go again into Mombasa and look at other areas of Mombasa. But if that is what it will take to contain the situation, then that should happen.
That's what, if there's some seriousness attached to all of this, and say we really want to get to the point where we've reached the peak and then the plateau, and then now we are coming down, then we really have to take strict and stringent measures. Unfortunately, it can't be this dance with, here and here and maybe not everywhere.
In government.
Make a decision
and
go with it. And otherwise, we'll see more cases. we will see more cases. They will continue testing and they will continue rising. And then you will have like what when you were talking about the tree yesterday, you will have individuals that cannot be found and go along their merry way, spreading it to other people as they go along. That's what's going to happen. So it's either you take that and then treat people and overburden an already overburdened health system, or you lock it down and you can concentrate on where you know these infections are and then deal with it from there. It's one or the other. There's no two ways about
I'm
this
feeling
thing.
wishy for the government. I do not want to go full hog on.
You're feeling wishy?
They should have done this. We've said this very many times from the very beginning. Lock down for 2 weeks, then ease up. After those 2 weeks, we saw it happening in Rwanda. Now Rwanda is starting to ease up the measures. Okay, they're still exposed to the unscrupulous neighbors who are not doing anything good, but at least Rwanda went into lockdown. Now they're saying, okay, let's open up the activity. Kenya, we did not close down the activities. We started nyongaing people. So people have already suffered. If you look at the number of people who are out in the streets now, it's because they're running out of cash and they're looking for something. Now, if you lock down now, where we have run out of cash reserves, people have already lost jobs, they have no income. Lockdown now.
That's the problem.
It's going to be a problem.
Even this lockdown that you're talking about, Eastleigh and Old Town, it's still for that. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Because the people who lost jobs, right? Like you say, the month has passed, right? And they've expended whatever they had. They don't have. So now
they don't have
keep
any
them
more.
inside.
And the government has not rolled out any proper social protection measures. We were talking with Mohammed Ersi, a board member of the fund yesterday, and they were saying, yes, so they're working with other well-wishers who are distributing food and support to vulnerable communities. But you see, that is not well coordinated or organized, such that we know that this particular area, we have enough food to support X number of people who need support. We don't know that. So just saying that in lockdown right now, that ship sailed, we're in the middle of the ocean, there's a storm, let's just brace.
Let's just
the
try
storm.
and swim to shore.
Let's just
whichever way we'll get there.
Oh yeah.
Sit on top.
Those that
hold
get
the
there
boat.
get there. Those that don't get there.
It sounds terrible. It sounds like doomsday prophesying. But look, that's just it. If we didn't take the measures that should have been taken at that time, then we're just going to have to deal with whatever we're dealt with now.
We're just running after the virus.
Yeah.
Playing catch up. It's way, way ahead of us, most definitely. So we're just trying to play catch up and hope that you get it. But I think it's too late. It's too late.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
But that's
For the government. It's a oh yeah. It's a very, very good story for the pigs and rats and everybody else who eats from our government. Those ones, they're happy. Because the increase in numbers means that we're making money. Money is going to come in one way or the other.
You're feeding the conspiracy theorists right now because they're thinking, hold on.
This is
so
it.
Maybe this is what they wanted all along.
I don't know.
So that we could have more money in our pocket.
But you cannot feel sorry for government. Government has all the machinery you can think of. It can get or employ all the best brains that it can and have it behind the scenes.
There are very
do
many
anything.
best brains who are working in
There
government.
are
If you ask
very
them,
many
they'll tell you.
They have.
Ask
they
the
do.
very best brains, they'll tell you what should be happening. And then talk to the politicians who are the decision
This is
makers.
the thing. If the government today decided that they want to lock down this nation for 15 days
And
then feed everybody
people.
for those 15 days,
It would be possible.
and they could get it done, you would be marveled at how they do it. But in terms of can, which implies ability, or will, which implies willingness, two totally different things.
27 minutes to 7. Let's look at it.
All right, it's looking good on Mombasa Road, right past Green Park Estate from Athi River. Very, very good this morning. There's quite a lot of traffic right around Bellevue, getting out of the South Sea and onto Mombasa Road. So you want to check that if you're approaching the area. Okay. South B, South C, Nasra and Kiamaiko recording high numbers of immigrants from Islay this morning. Mass movement from Islay. This morning as well, there's traffic like crazy trying to get onto Murang'a Road. Interesting. Okay, coming off of Thika Road as well, there's some traffic then as you try to approach the Pangani Underpass and then onto the Globe Cinema roundabout. Apart from that, it's looking pretty good. The traffic that we see coming out of Eastleigh is overflows from last night. So we wonder what was blocked and what was not. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that this morning. Let you know what it looks like. If you see something, let us know. You know what to call Spice FM KE.
Spice up your life.
And it's Kenya's biggest conversation. So social media is saying that there's a lot of traffic around Eastleigh.
Yeah.
And now the speculation is what's happening.
Is that people are leaving Eastleigh to go to other places.
So it's the equation X minus Y.
And here we go to Eastleigh to South Sea migrants, alleged migrants, quite a number of people leaving Eastleigh and going to South Sea, going to South B, going to Kiamaiko, going to Nasra. I don't know where Nasra is, but okay, this is what we see. It's alleged, but this is what they say is happening. So I don't know if lockdown actually started from last night, but it seems that quite a number of people are moving as of 4:34. From midnight last night even until 4:40 this morning, 5:42 this morning. This is what we see. Still an exodus.
Who is reporting this?
Who's reporting? Because
I'd
yesterday
like to
we
question.
had.
You're supposed to have been indoors. Are you saying
So
that
where
somebody
are
is
you?
actually out there reporting and seeing,
No.
noticing that this person has left Eastleigh and gone to South B? How do you know they left Eastleigh and went to South B? Have
And
you followed
yesterday
them to
we
South
had a
B?
crew on the ground
From KTN
from
around
KTN,
7 o'clock. Yeah.
7 o'clock, even 9 p.m., even as late as 9 p.m. we had a crew on the ground in Eastleigh, and Eastleigh was a
Ghost
ghost
town.
There was
ghost
no
town.
movement.
There
They
was
had
no
left.
movement. There was nothing. And then at the time, from the reports that we got from the ground, was that the security forces were putting in barriers in all of those exit points from Eastleigh.
Okay.
So I would take that with a bucket of salt.
Yeah.
Oh, I would too, but you know,
Let's
this is
avoid
the
avoid spreading.
The
This is a
problem
part of the
is that,
stigmatization.
yes,
of Eastleigh.
when stuff like this gets out, it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
Then everybody now starts to think, hold on a minute, people are actually leaving.
And now you know what happens is that now people start looking at South B and South C as hotspots.
Yeah.
So anybody who lives in South B and South C are viewed as, so you are the next Eastleigh. Come on. Unless you've got evidence and say, my neighbor, they used to live 4 people and now they're 17. Now. Raise
Then
that
we'll
up
have a
and say,
story,
Yes, I've seen
Yeah.
f-
But
new
I
people
think
coming in.
anyone who wanted to moved out yesterday between 5 and 7 p.m. After that,
Not many.
not many will
Not
move.
many.
Yeah.
There are videos of traffic at night. Traffic at night is basically just showing the traffic during the day. Because during the day, there was a lot of traffic yesterday. And, well, we've been seeing a rise and increase in traffic numbers. So people who are caught up in traffic, if you are out at 5 p.m. and then you're caught up in a 2-hour traffic somewhere on Mombasa Road, you will end up getting to your home past 7
curfew
p.m.
hours.
Past the
True.
curfew
I'm sure
hours.
well into 9, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
For sure.
Hey, okay. So no entry, no exit for people in Eastleigh and in Old Town in Mombasa. It'll be interesting to also see what happens and how this is enforced as well in Mombasa. My main issue, like I said earlier, is just on the enforcement. If the enforcement is not done properly, then you're just doing like what we've been seeing. Weekends, we don't see a lot of activity at the exit points. And then on Monday, we see a lot of complaints. People asking, why can't I get back to Nairobi?
Back into Nairobi?
It means that they left and nobody raised
Nobody
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 asked them
picked them
anything.
out.
All right. Let's look at what's happening with flooding in the country because it's still an issue. The rising Lake Victoria threatens to swallow up islands as rain and floods leave a trail of destruction. Thousands may need to be evacuated as islands in Lake Victoria are submerged. And we're not talking about a little bit peeking out. Islands have been completely submerged. And the government is looking at this. Several families have already been evacuated from Migingo Island in Migori County and are camping at schools on the mainland. There is a backflow of water in the lake. And now what they're saying in this case is that the rivers that we see bursting their banks, this is a result of the lake having reached its maximum capacity. And so because of that, it has swollen and it's now feeding out into...
So the lake is feeding the river.
Yeah, basically. This is what is happening.
A
in this
backflow.
case. So the backflow is what is now causing
My
the problem.
good Lord.
And as the lake continues to swell, we're not going to see a letdown in what is happening now with the major rivers that we see, Nyando, all of the place, and going as far as, in this case, Budalangi. So there's a backflow of water in the lake caused by several factors, including heavy inflow as a result of the heavy rains, which does not correspond to the outflow. So the water is not leaving and more continues to come in. Thousands of lives and economic activities are now threatened as a few islands are on the verge of being completely submerged. On Remba Island, with a population of about 70,000, more than 143 families have been displaced and their homes were marooned. The affected families have been directed to set up temporary structures in an area previously used as a graveyard. The island is a major business center, and many traders are contemplating relocating to safer ground. Suba North MP Millie Odhiambo says the families will have to be relocated to safer areas if the water levels rise further.
We'll speak on the issue of flooding and what the effects of flooding are to the country and the population. 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. as well. We'll be speaking to the Suba North MP, Millie Odhiambo, to hear what she's dealing with on the ground. But so the epicenter of, or if you can call it this way, of flooding this time is the counties around Nyanza, the Nyanza Basin. But also, let's remember, the Tana River, Garissa, and all these other places are hard hit. Yesterday, the CS for Energy was speaking about the overflow of the Seven Forks dams. So these dams have actually filled to beyond historical capacity. Now, you can imagine what happens downstream to Tana River. Garissa will just be inundated. Actually, Garissa will be underwater for a very long time to come, as long as these dams are still overflowing. Big stuff. Page 7 of the Standard is something that, Mercy, you'll find interesting. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has approved a 3 billion shillings boost for health workers. The payments, which will last for 3 months, will range between 5,000 and 20,000. These payments will go for the letter is to Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani from SRC Chairperson Lynn Mengich, copy to Mutahi Kagwe and the Public Service CS. Now, doctors, dentists, and pharmacists will go home with 20,000 each starting this month. Clinical officers, nurses, medical lab technologists, technicians, biochemists, chemists, medical entomologists, parasitologists, lab officers, physiotherapists fall in the second batch, and they'll get 15,000. Then the third batch is technologists and technicians in public health, dental, pharmaceutical, orthopedic, trauma, medical engineering, nutrition, and dietetics, and they'll receive 10,000.
So the thing about this, yes, it has approved, but it had a caveat, subject to availability of funds.
Bas.
So for me, this was like, okay, fine. This is something good to have approved and written, but until it has been done or it has been implemented, it's just an approved budget of 3B.
If it comes out of SRC, the breakdown comes out of SRC, it's upon Ukur Yatani to find the money. And Ukur Yatani will not find money unless he gets approval by Parliament. So I guess if Ukur Yatani goes to Parliament and says, I'd like to budget this
much
to go here, then he gets approval. It's upon him now to look for that money and ensure that it goes. Support staff are getting 5,000. These are cleaning supervisors, support staff, senior 1, 2, and 3. Boiler assistants. So everybody who's working in healthcare now is sort of getting this. And support staff also include drivers, I presume, right?
Yeah.
So everybody is getting at least some allowance. Is this what was also going to cater for medical? Was this this is what the president talked about, asking them to come up with a package?
Yes, this is the package that
the welfare package.
The welfare package. Just like remember how this started was Alfred Mutua gave the healthcare workers in Machakos some amount, and then SRC came and said it is not legal. This is discriminatory and all of those things.
Yeah.
So this comes from that, like our healthcare workers who are the front lines, how can we support them during this time? And so this is the breakdown. So this is just the allowances that will go to them.
Okay.
Now, the other bit was the medical covers, because not all of them have a medical cover. Like the ones that are in government facilities are under NHIF, but there are many others in your faith-based organizations, in your private sector, who may not necessarily have a cover, and particularly the support staff or the staff who are considered lower cadres. So as to that, I've not seen any communication or whether this also covers that, but it should be something to be seriously considered, because if they fall ill in the line of duty, what happens? If somebody dies in the line of duty, what happens? Yeah.
But these are the ones in government. So
yes, these are the ones, because
I
as
think
SRC rates
it's a
are
conversation
for,
that also we'll need to raise with Dr. Abdi Mohammed for the private hospitals
exactly.
and the faith-based, because we have got very many other
Remember yesterday
healthcare
you said
institutions.
like private facilities are about 6,000
Yeah.
from the big boys, which are about 4-8. Now with the rest, mainly small rural private healthcare facilities.
Yeah.
So what happens to them? What happens to healthcare workers in those facilities?
Speaking of which, also, so we are also seeing governors falling over themselves trying to show how they're taking care of their workers. Kilifi unveiled an entire facility for housing there.
Doctors' residence.
Yeah, the doctors' residence. So this means that the healthcare workers in Kilifi will be staying there.
But remember,
Or
Kilifi,
what does this mean?
Ideally, it should mean that your healthcare workers who are the front line, those that are manning your isolation units, those that are manning your quarantine facilities, are housed somewhere, so that, one, you remember the case we were doing the chain yesterday, the Kawangware, the index case for Kawangware. You want to avoid something like that. So you want to accommodate your healthcare workers in a particular place so that they can be operating from there. When their shift ends, let's say in a month or 2 weeks' time, they can go into quarantine. Then when they are safe, now they can go back to the community. So that's the whole idea of a doctor's residence. That's the whole idea. Even the ones, particularly in Mbagathi isolation units, KU, TRH, Kenyatta, these particular healthcare workers need a special accommodation so that we avoid seeing the index case in Kawangware.
It's a good thing that we saw that coming out of Kilifi. Not
It
sure
is.
whether it was newly constructed or it was just a repurposed building, repurposed for these accommodations.
Probably repurposed, painted well, nice photo ops, and
Done
so-
very well. Moranga has a new ICU unit constructed within 2 weeks. Another issue that we'll talk about, how money is. Anyway, 13 minutes after to 7 o'clock, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Stick with us. We are taking a look at the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Instagram at Spice FM KE.
It's now 13 to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this week is Eric Latif Nduoko and Dr. Mercy Karir. Our friend C.T. Muga, the paragon of wisdom, is away for the week. Hopefully he'll be with us again next week. Other headlines.
Right, so Kemri is being swamped with all kinds of herbal cures coming out of Madagascar. And we've seen so many things being done. So everybody's going to Kemri now and saying, you know what, we actually have this thing that can work. So I think Kemri is having to deal with a lot of these requests and saying, okay, one by one. I don't know if they'll pay much
So
attention.
people are going to
it.
Kemri with their concoction and saying, I'd like you to test this for us.
Yes, basically.
That's
local herbalists, no
That's
less.
it,
And they've demanded a chance to demonstrate their ability to treat COVID-19 patients. The Kenya Medical Research Institute says it's been swamped with requests from local herbalists and traditional healers claiming to have cures for the disease. Some healers, Kemri says, have even requested laboratory space at the institute to demonstrate the efficacy of their concoctions. According to Dr. Festus Tolo, Deputy Director at Kemri in charge of research and natural products, Much as this is a good gesture and an effort to provide a solution to the problem, Kemri requests that in the meantime, such persons remain calm. He said, and he maintains that so far there is no herbal or traditional medicine that has been confirmed able to treat COVID-19, and cautioned healers to follow instructions and directives as prescribed by the Ministry of Health on COVID-19 management value, while researchers continue to study the new virus. So remain calm, he says. We know that this may work in one case or another, but for COVID, not quite yet.
I should provide some facility for these herbalists and traditional healers. Some of these herbalists, it doesn't mean that they are not educated. They actually have, let them provide a facility for them to work on something. Moves on to some place, then it comes to the formal lab, fine.
The sad thing for me about this is that we have a whole institute for research. The health budget, I think 2% of the health budget should go into research. We never put in money there.
The Abuja Convention, which African states agreed to, they penned their signature to, was for 15%.
Of our national budget to go into healthcare.
That should go into research.
No.
Should go into healthcare, of which 4% was to be towards research. You have 4% is the average across African countries for health.
Yeah. So because if we had beefed up our research space, all of these herbalists would have somewhere to take these concoctions, because you can never dismiss them.
But we get supported from, they get actually a lot more than they'd have gotten if we were getting money from that sometimes is our undoing. That because we've got a donor who's willing to help us, and then we have gotten so hooked to this donor support, we never look at it as anything. Kemri watapata pesa ya donor, let's move on, let's put this money elsewhere, let's eat it. Donor money will support Kemri. So Kemri is basically almost 100% supported by donor. So our research is basically influenced by the donor community.
By what the donor wants.
Yeah. Instead of us looking at how to put in money here. And that's what we were talking about blood yesterday. Now, blood should be our own thing that we manage, we finance, we resource, we do everything with it.
Put in your tax money into research, into blood. We wouldn't be having these problems. We would at least have an idea.
Yeah.
And then some of these herbalists would have already come a long time ago. So you would know what products or what herb could have some potential, and you could just relook at it. Look at remdesivir, one of the medicines that is used, that is now in trial for treatment of the coronavirus. It was initially developed in trials for Ebola. So it didn't work for Ebola. So now you've just repurposed it or re-engineered it to see if it will work for COVID. So if you have all these molecules already studied and done, then doing trials or trying to find if it will work for your current situation becomes much easier.
It's easier, much easier.
And saves time. But we wait until things are on the dead end, then we try and, flog it back to life.
Right.
Kenyans are coming back home. The flight to Gwangju is supposed to be taking off today, right? To Gwangju, and then from Gwangju tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We already know that the flight from the UK landed on the 4th or 5th. The flight from India is going to be coming. The number of Kenyans who will actually succeed in raising the fare and coming to the country is something of interest. But also how they are treated once they arrive here. The condition has been, and this is what the embassies are telling Kenyans, is if you want to go back to the country, be prepared for 14 days of quarantine at your own cost. Well, now that the government has said this, phew, hey, so you'll come in and now you'll be quarantined at taxpayers' expense. There are those that are coming in, and because of their condition, maybe they'd gone to India to seek treatment, you come back home and you're already vulnerable, so the government is working with you on how you can go and
quarantine
at home. So,
or in a hospital facility. Yeah.
So pictures yesterday out of the Chinese embassy in Nairobi. Many Chinese who want to go home.
Are they being allowed to go?
They were seeking now. I think they were registering that there's a flight that's leaving Nairobi to go to Gwangju.
It shouldn't go empty.
Shouldn't go empty. Carry some of these people, take them home. There's even a bird that has flown from Kenya and gone to China. flown 8,000 kilometers from Kenya to China.
It wanted to go home too.
It wanted to go home, clearly. It was migrating, and then it was caught up in this COVID.
Drama and said, no,
It
guys,
found a window open.
I'm done.
Yes, Birding Beijing, a Chinese birding website, posted on Twitter that GLS data shows the bird is now on its way to Russia via Mongolia. The bird that has excited people online is nicknamed Onon for defying the odds and its spirit of adventure in the midst of despair. Onon has made it, that is what they're saying. So it left Kenya on April 29th, just the other day. That's just, what? April 29th, left Kenya, crossed the Arabian Sea, the Indian subcontinent, the Himalayas, and finally landed in China on the 4th.
A bird, a small bird.
A small bird. And now it's
has
heading
the
to
resolve
To go home.
cross and
Continent.
achieve, cross continents, oceans, can move and achieve its result. How much more a government with individuals who are versed with knowledge?
What's
You know I have to
fascinating
make
is that
that
it
connection.
has layovers.
Yeah.
Right, stop and rest,
Mongolia.
but I'm still going.
I'm going to Russia via Mongolia.
I know, I love that. Via Mongolia, no less.
That's
It even has a
amazing.
flight plan.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going. The one that came from other parts, from where was it? From Finland.
Yeah, and
To
then
Kenya.
got here and died.
And
And
then
then
it
just
died.
died.
That was a very sad one. That was a sad case. Nothing to talk about how we take care of our own
No,
or
no,
our visitors.
No.
But it's just an unfortunate,
Incident.
accident.
Even our visitors.
Yeah. Even our visitors, how we take care of them. This should not be misconstrued to mean that Kenyans cannot take care of visitors who've traveled from far. The syllabus is to resume when schools closed.
Say that again.
Syllabus to resume from when schools closed. You get it?
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
it. So
get
when
it.
schools open,
We'll go back to
we'll
factory
go back to factory setting from where we left off.
to 15th
Yeah.
of March.
Yeah.
The coverage of the syllabus will begin where it stopped when schools were closed in mid-March due to coronavirus. This is according to CS for Education, Professor George Magoha. He says the ongoing e-learning spearheaded by the KICD is only meant to complement the physical interaction between teachers and learners and not to replace classroom learning. Upon reopening of schools, coverage of the curriculum will resume from the point of coverage as at mid-March. This will ensure that all learners who don't have access to the e-learning are sufficiently accommodated. He was responding to queries from MPs, and he says the delivery of CBC in primary 1 and 2 up to grade 4 and 844 for grade 5 is designed to be implemented in a classroom setup where there is physical interaction between teachers and learners. But the lawmakers were dismissing the measures announced by Professor Magoha to recover time lost when schools closed. The minister said on Tuesday that the August holidays will be shortened by 2 weeks. School days adjusted to have longer hours and second-term mid-break reduced by 4 days in measures that the ministry hopes will mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. So they have a plan. They just wanted to go to tell it to MPs. Where can they tell us also?
He
We are the
finally said it, but
stakeholders.
my good grief.
Yeah.
You should have said it a while ago.
Yes,
They
yes.
would have avoided all this headache and
There's an
frustration that we
entire
have
plan. This is
confused.
what we're going to do. The midterm will be reduced by 2 weeks. The holiday will be reduced. We'll extend the number of hours. When Professor Magoha is standing there at Afi House and addressing, what he should just say
You
this.
should have just have said it. Yesterday, NTV did a very good coverage on classes in crisis. And what stood out for me was they had 2 children from the different socioeconomic status. So the first child, and they played this back to back, the first child said that the challenge they are facing now at home is that sometimes they don't have bundles to, continue with e-learning activities. Then the other child was that they don't have time to do e-learning because they are herding cattle, they're out in the fields, so they don't have time to do e-learning.
How's that for reality?
For me, it was like, we are in 2 different worlds as a country. In 2 different worlds. Well, one is thinking about, bundles and access. The other one is like, I don't have time because who will herd the
I'm
cattle?
doing the work.
Yeah, and then now the parents were like, even that TV I don't have, even that radio I don't have. Another one is like, I don't even have electricity.
I'm waiting for them to go back to
Yeah,
school.
I'm waiting for them to go back to school. And others are like, the same questions that would be asked to all of the students. It's not like they'll say, okay, you did e-learning, we'll ask you hard questions.
Yeah.
And you are herding cattle, we'll give you fair
Easier
questions.
questions.
Yeah. And the other thing that also came out for me there was one of the education analysts who was saying the government has the capability of saying everyone proceed to the next class without necessarily having an exam done.
Yeah.
Can we explore that?
Or even, there's nothing wrong with repeating a year. Nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with repeating a year. Nothing. Today's proverb, as we come to the top of the hour, a chick that will grow into a cock or a hen can be spotted the very day it hatches. Now I'm just being,
You're helping me.
Yeah, no,
You're a minority.
A chick that will grow into a cock can be spotted the very day it hatches. This is a proverb from the Igbo people of southern Nigeria. Igbo. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
The normal issues that we have right around this time. There's traffic right around the SGR and then heading all the way down towards Cabanas. It's moving very slowly, but don't worry, you'll get there eventually. Let's see what's happening in different parts. On Thika Road today, not looking so bad, but for some reason in Westlands, Wayaki Way, traffic started as far back as the Gitaru Junction. It's moving, but it's moving slowly. You'll be able to get there, not a problem. Getting to the Pangani underpass from Thika Road, also moving slowly, but you'll get there as well. Getting to the CBD from Jogo Road, it is slow. You have a bit of traffic right around the City Stadium roundabouts, but you'll be okay getting out towards the Machakos bus station. On Thika Road is beautiful sunset, but traffic. When you're in traffic, you'll be able to experience that because it's going to take you a minute to get into the CBD. Spice MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, but for now, it doesn't look like you have too much of a headache getting out and about.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth,
2.5
Kenyan
minutes
by
after
choice.
7.
Communication.
Good morning. In the room this morning as well is Dr. Mercy Career. C.T. Muga is away for the week. Now let's talk about what the other disaster that's unfolding in the country. Floods, water everywhere. We talked about this in the newspaper review. What's happening in Nyanza, what's happening in parts of Busia County, Budalangi in particular, what is happening even in other parts of the country. In Nakuru, people have been affected by floods. In Tana River, in Wajir and Garissa, people have been affected by floods. Floods are basically just everywhere. Yesterday, the 5 CSs who like going to the Med Department and then they address us from there, went to the Med Department and they addressed us from there. The CS for Interior, Fred Matiang'i, CS for Energy, Keter, for
Water.
Devolution, Wamalwa, for Water, Sicily, and ICT and Communication. So they were there, they told us, this is what the government is doing. We have seen now that Wamalwa, the CS for Devolution and ASAL is starting to distribute relief food to the affected areas. The Interior and Coordination of Government is saying we are using our local national government officers to tell people, to advise people to move. And when they refuse to move, we are warning them that we're going to evict them by force. There's a humanitarian crisis unfolding, not unfolding, it's already here with us. Very many families are not sleeping at home. Very many families are not sleeping on dry land. Very many children are not on dry land. And very many, of course, then it means that they are not eating. They don't have water, potable water. What is happening around the country? That's what we're discussing today, from now until 10 a.m.
There's a mess unfolding, and unfortunately, the real situation doesn't get to us in terms of the details of what's actually going on. We saw some horrific pictures yesterday of people living along the banks, living in makeshift structures along the banks of a river that clearly was too much, and it's what submerged their homes. I just try to imagine for a moment what people having to go through living in these makeshift structures, and what would be your door in this case is a river. And inside there now you're having to live cramped with members of your family. The amount of what we're dealing with now in terms of disease, whether it's waterborne, whether it comes out of because of living in a claustrophobic space, whatever it is not good. And it's not that it's happening to one or two or three people, it's happening to thousands of people.
It's an entire community.
It's entire communities in this case.
You're talking
People
about
have
a
had to
certain
move.
village. Everybody in that village is affected. So you can't
Moves.
say that there's anybody who can help others. Everybody is affected. This is, and it's not just, small amounts of water. It's not a few millimeters of water. It's still raining.
And it's still coming.
It's still coming. You're flooded out. You have nowhere to live. You have nowhere to sleep. You have no food to eat. The government is flagging off trucks from Nairobi today, expecting those trucks to get to you, and then the whole logistics of distribution of the food arriving. It's a very unfortunate thing and messy.
And on top of that, we look at, I'm just looking at the standard, the aftermath, where last week we had landslides, mudslides in Kerio, in the Elgeyo Marakwet area. And now they are seeing the earth cracking. That's uphill. So what are we going to see downhill on this other side?
Yeah.
So the aftermath, yes, there's a human cost, but now there's something happening to our environment. Is this another potential for another landslide?
Landslide, yes.
Because if it cracks, it can fall anytime and it can fall anywhere.
Well, we did see that there was an earthquake over the weekend, 4.9 on the Richter scale. So, I mean, the earth is already shifting in this region. And so this was Kenya, Ethiopia, and then moving on to this other side, Rwanda, right? So that actually happened. We wouldn't feel it. But unfortunately, now we start to see the effects.
Start to see this.
Because then you see a road that is erupting, for example, and in that particular area where there was not necessarily any rain, the earth is shifting. It's moving.
It's shifting.
Now, when there is rain, you can imagine now how much worse it even gets, because then any holes that are created as a result of the shift are then now filled with water, and then that creates a very huge problem. So we're dealing with many things at the same time, unfortunately.
And even when we are flagging off relief food via trucks to go to these areas, we know some areas have been completely cut off because the bridges have either been flooded or the bridges have split into two quite literally, so the roads have been cut off. We're seeing the earth cracking, so it means some areas will be impassable. So is distributing food via the trucks a good idea at this point? I mean, it's government.
I would imagine that
we
maybe
put
what
it
they're
in
doing
choppers?
is use their trucks because it will carry bulk up to a point where then you can use other means to airlift closer, like last mile. So chopper will come, and now, because chopper will not carry what a truck will be able to carry in one trip, right?
Not.
So use the trucks, bring to a certain warehouse, then from there now start using chopper to airlift to specific communities, wherever they are. Maybe, just assuming that this is what the government is
Hopefully
thinking.
that's what is in the
I'm just
table.
hoping
It
that
would
this is
be
what they're
nice that that's what actually was being thought of. It would be
Let's
great.
go to the ground in Budalangi and start speaking to the community. John Mondo is a senior broadcast journalist. He's in Budalangi. He's been there. He's witnessing exactly what's happening. And now he joins us on the line. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. And we first of all have to tell you, poleni sana for what's happening in Budalangi.
Yeah.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
Good morning, Mondo.
Good morning to you.
Yes.
So, John,
Yes.
A number of people, we are seeing images of a number of people who've been affected by this, people who've been displaced by floods, people who have, are now living in makeshift camps, children who
Yes.
cannot even imagine playing, not even, schools are closed, but even playing, it's difficult for children. Just paint us a picture of what you see on the ground.
Indeed, the situation here is worrying. As you understand, almost over half of Budalangi is submerged in the waters.
Mm.
And homes, schools, even churches are in the water. And people have lost their property. Nothing is happening down there. But it's very unfortunate that some people have refused to move to higher grounds.
Mm.
And the issue they are claiming is that they lose their property when they move to higher grounds. And to say the truth is, from the locals themselves, they say such a situation happened last in 1961.
Yep.
They have not experienced harsh flooding for quite some time, though they had some flooding in 2011, but was not of such magnitude.
Wow.
Currently, the government is trying to do the evacuation, but accessing some of, as you mentioned earlier, accessing some of the areas is a bit tricky. So they have to use boats. From the Sigiri Bridge, they use boats going down the area. And like 2 days ago, there's one of the boats which was rescuing people has capsized around 6 people.
Wow.
Gosh.
It was just good that it was around the bridge, and all the 6 were rescued.
Mm-hmm.
So the situation is not good, and what these people really need, as per now, is food. They don't have, even those ones who are in the makeshift tents, they don't have mosquito nets.
Yeah.
I happened to talk to some of the mamas down, and they were complaining of having signs of malaria. There's no treatment. I think the county government, which is in charge of health, is not doing enough. They are lacking toilets. They are requesting to be assisted with at least mobile toilets.
Yeah.
Because as you understand, most of our schools, they don't have good infrastructure per se. So you are getting so many families in these schools, and the laboratories are not enough.
They're not enough.
Yeah. The other thing that is coming up is security.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to talk to some of these people, and they cannot move, or even if they go to those camps, they have been going to camps for many years. But if they go to camps, we always have people who take advantage to steal their properties.
Wow.
And indeed, even when 2 days ago, when you were going to rescue some people along the dikes, surprisingly, somebody during the day just breaks into somebody's house.
So people are vacating their homes to go to camps, and somebody now turns around and goes to rob from those homes.
Yes.
John, you've said something that's very interesting. Having talked to people who are used to going to camps, that means this is not the first time this has happened. Every time there's flooding in the area, they're used to going to camps for a certain time. When the water disappears or when the rain stops, then they're also used to going back home. So it becomes kind of like a cycle, a way of life.
It's a cycle.
Do you think that those who could do something about this are also in that state of mind? Because you say the government needs to do a lot more, that they need help here and there. Could it be that it's a way of thinking now that it's here, but it's going to disappear, and we'll just get along with life?
The truth is that even if it disappears, it's not now. Because the waters is everywhere. And put in mind that this kind of flooding is unique.
Yeah.
Because, like for Budalangi, people started moving away from their homes around in December due to Budalangi, they're getting 2 cases of flooding. One, there's this water from River Nzoia, where water from all along from Mount Elgo, Nyala is pouring down to Budalangi due to the heavy rains. And then by December, we had backflow of the lake.
Yeah.
The lake has moved several kilometers from where it has been for years. So all this water, it's not something we can say that even the next 1 or 2 months, life will go on.
It's going to take a while to drain.
So this is unique in the way things are happening right now. The levels that we are seeing are unprecedented, not happened before like this.
Since 1961.
Since 1961, right?
Yes.
So it can't be then business as usual, whereby we wait for the water to fade and then we go back to every factory settings.
Cannot be.
So, John, you mentioned something about refusal of the people to move.
Yes.
So when they refuse to move, how are they living? Are you saying that they're living in their submerged houses?
No, well, we have some few areas along the dikes where they have put some makeshift tents. And it's too pathetic because when you go there, the way they are living, the kids, in fact, children are suffering more. But I'm very happy with the government directive yesterday that has directed all county commissioners to ensure that all people affected with water are forcefully evacuated. At least that directive will help.
Mondo, why do you think people, they're seeing the situation around them, they're seeing that things are bad, why do you think they would refuse to move? I mean, even if they say they fear that their property will be lost, it will, if they continue staying there anyway, even their lives will be lost because the floods are about to just go with the property anyway. So why would they not see that?
One thing I come to realize is that these people have been moving during such calamities.
Yeah.
And another issue they have mentioned is that whenever they are moved to higher grounds, after the flooding, nobody cares to help them transport their properties back to their homes.
Okay.
Because they're afraid, they're saying, if you're moving to higher grounds, what next after this flood? Because we have been moving after the floods. You start looking for your own funds to move your properties to your home.
So it's a past experience, past treatment by the government. Been there, done that. They're basically saying, come on. This whole story you're telling us, we've heard it before. We obeyed your instructions previously, and you did not support us.
Yes. A second thing, according to my analysis, it's politics.
Okay.
When you look at Budalangi, we have camps. One of former MP, Ababu Namwamba, and the current MP, Raphael Wanjala. So you got some areas and people are telling you, nyinyi mnataka kutuchukua tu hapa kisiasa, mwende mtutese, ingekuwa wakati wa Wanjala. Even if you look at social media, people have politicized this flooding. Some are saying, during Ababu's time, there was no flooding of such amount. What have you? So they go down even to the locals, telling them not to move, mtaenda kuteswa, such like things. So they've also politicized this calamity, and everything is just in a mess.
It's an interesting point. Let's just take a pause there with that issue of politics and come back and start from it. John Mondo is a senior broadcast journalist in Budalangi. He's giving us the lowdown of what's happening in Budalangi. Let's take a look at weather and then continue this conversation. Good morning. It's 18 minutes after 7.
highs of 23. In Nyeri at 16 degrees, we see showers already going on here. Highs of 22 and lows of 14 with thunderstorms. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Eldoret, showers have started this morning, highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Kisumu, we see highs of 21, partly cloudy conditions right now, highs of 28 and lows of 20 with showers early on. 25 degrees in Mombasa and mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 25. In Malindi, cloudy conditions and rain has already started with highs of 29 and lows of 25. The rain will carry us well into the evening. Kampala at 21 degrees today. Right now, thunderstorms expected for the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 29. Thursday in Dar es Salaam is going to be a partly cloudy morning, highs of 30 and lows of 24 with rain showers. In Johannesburg, it's foggy this morning at 7 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 6. Cool day in Johannesburg. And finally, for now, in Lagos at 28 degrees, highs of 33 and lows of 26 with partly cloudy conditions all through.
It's 20 after 7.
Spice
This
up
is the
your
Situation
life.
Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, Eric Latif, Nduoko, Dr. Mercy.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Budalangi. And before we went into this break, John, you were telling us about why you see and you think people are refusing to move to higher ground. Evacuation being ordered by government, and people are still reluctant to move to higher ground. One of the reasons you're saying is previous experience with moving from where they are to higher ground, and after the rain, after the issue subsides, the government does not offer them any assistance in going back to their homes. Second issue, and this is a bit now worrying, is the politicization of the evacuation. Those two camps that have emerged, the current MP and the former MP. Ababu Namwamba is a former MP, current MP, Raphael Wanjala. So supporters of Raphael Wanjala are saying one thing, and the supporters of Ababu Namwamba are saying another thing. What are the two politicians saying?
You know, I happened to move with Raphael Wanjala to some of the areas, the affected areas. But in some areas, you find the victims are telling him off that, you see, this is what was not there during, we never experienced such during Babu's time.
Yep.
But they forget that this is a natural calamity. It's not something that has been brought about by a politician. When you look at the issue of the dikes, I remember at one time government launched a 5 billion World Bank project to do permanent dikes that could have helped to control water. But just because of politics, some people never gave up their land for compensation so that the project can kick off.
So what happened to the project?
Everything, it's stalled up to now. It's already 2 years late. Nothing has moved despite the World Bank releasing the money.
But the government has powers to use compulsory acquisition of land. We have seen it happen, SGR, we've seen it happen in roads. How would it be impossible for people to be compensated, compulsorily compensated for this particular piece of land?
The other day I was with CS Devolution, who was then CS Water.
Yes.
Who was the delegate was under. And I asked him the same question. And he said, you know, these guys are the owners of the land, and we're just appealing them to work out immediately so that the project immediately after the flooding, the project can start.
So it sounds like Eugene Omalo was just lifting his hands in the air and saying, "Sasa unataka nifanye nini?"
So I think we are hoping that maybe after the flooding, people will be awakened. But this kind of the kind of magnitude of the flooding, and something will be done. And maybe there's something I forgot to mention. One of the biggest challenges the victims of flooding are facing. You know, for them, they're having what we can call a double tragedy. There is the corona pandemic, and there is the flooding. If you go to most of these camps, with the government directive of people putting on masks and just social distance, it's not there. And nobody has thought of it. Nobody has thought of it that they can even supply masks. They can even think of.
Putting them on.
Do the people seem concerned about the coronavirus?
Some, but just on the smaller few. Few are concerned, but some are saying, what about corona?
We have bigger challenges.
Exactly, because if you're facing flood waters that may sweep you into oblivion, and a virus which is not visible at all, and so far the hotspots is Nairobi and Mombasa, and you're in Budalangi, really, you'll be more concerned about your immediate threat.
Yeah.
In fact, they're telling us, your corona ni yenyo Nairobi.
They have a point. So far, they have a point.
The floods are likely to have an immediate threat by sweeping or literally washing everyone away, one. Two, the immediate effects of the flooding. You've talked about sanitation services being almost non-existent. People are used to seeking shelter in schools, in churches, which are submerged. And those particular places, they use latrines. So you can imagine that everything is now out there. So you're looking at cholera and other diarrheal diseases, which is a big threat to children. The other one is malaria. The threat of malaria is real for these particular people. Our healthcare service is accessible. So even if I was in that particular situation, I would be more worried about those things because they are the immediate effect. They're the thing that I can see. And then lastly is food and availability of nutrition for children, for everyone who's been displaced. So they're rightly so. And if those concerns are not addressed, then this coronavirus, which you have a 98% chance of fighting it, then you're going to take a gamble.
And they're indeed gambling.
And they are. John, what's happening in terms of offering assistance to the community, both from government and non-government organizations? So you've told us the kind of dire situation they're in. They need temporary shelter. These are tents. Who's supplying the tents? Who is supplying food and water? Who's supplying mosquito nets? Anyone who's working in those communities, and how are they organized?
At least food, they're getting food rations from the government. Ministry of Devolution has been providing them food. The other day, we saw some officials from the county government. I'm told the MCAs came together and contributed some money.
Okay.
So they were distributing some unga. Issues of mosquito nets, nobody has thought about it.
So in terms of plans, because like you said earlier, John, this is not something that's going to go away tomorrow. We still have their entire villages, entire towns are submerged. And to understand submerged, someone's entire house is underwater. Right?
Yeah.
So this thing of a few mosquito nets here and there, mobile toilets. Are there any plans, from what you understand, for some kind of permanency of solution, apart from what could be done to protect people in this prone area in the future, now with their needs, because they need this kind of relief for the next month at least, before we see an abate in the rains? Is there any plan? Is there any talk of anything like this?
The government, the area MP, Mushafel Wanjala, and a team of emergency response committee. They have been meeting, and I think they're putting the last time they met was yesterday, and I've not received more details of their meeting. But I haven't talked to the county commissioner. He says things are put in place. But though my biggest worry is this: in case we go to an extent, maybe the schools reopen. Let's assume is in July or late June.
Yeah.
Most of these people are in schools that are on the higher ground. Where will they go?
Yeah. Basically, what you're saying is the schools will not be able to resume because people will not move out of those shelters.
Yeah, people will not move out.
Well, I mean, we had the landslides, the major landslides that we saw, for example, in West Pokot last year.
Yes.
And we have camps that are still in schools till today. So you can imagine if this area that we're looking at, where schools have been made into makeshift or temporary camps, it's going to take us well into the next few months.
Nobody's going to move.
Nobody's going to move.
Nope.
So in terms of a structure, is there a community structure that's working with the government? For instance, elders or committees for the various camps that have a direct line with a response committee from the county. First of all, is there a response committee in the county, like county commissioner? You talked about the area MP having some meetings yesterday. Is there a properly created structure that everybody knows that, for example, the way we know in terms of fighting COVID, Mutahi Kagwe is the chair of a national emergency response committee. Do we have a similar structure in Budalangi addressing this crisis?
Yeah, specifically for Budalangi sub-county, there is a committee chaired by the DCC, Deputy County Commissioner.
Okay.
And in that committee, we have representatives of the constituency office, that is the MPs, the MP. We have chiefs, assistant chiefs. And then when you go down to the camps, we have every camp has a chairperson.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are the ones that come up. For example, I'm imagining that the chairman of the camps is going to speak to his community or her community, and they know these are our immediate needs. For instance, the way you're talking about, we need extra toilets, or we need mosquito nets, we need more food, or these kind of nutritional needs for our younger children. Then they are able to pass this information up that goes all the way to the committee. Is this happening?
It's happening. It's one thing to speak about it, and it's another thing to implement.
Yes.
Of course, they have been raising those issues. Even they raised when CS Devolution visited. We visited around 3 camps, and their chairpersons raised those queries. They raised concern of what they need to be done. Same to when we went around with the area MP. Even the area MP himself has given more of a proposal to the national government what needs to be done.
Yeah.
As well as county government.
But now, in terms of getting it done, is where the problem comes in.
Yes, implementation.
Which is usually the problem with our government. You have
With
very
the
nice plans on anything and everything. Even the choppers that we were talking about, probably it's somewhere on the plan. But when it gets to implementation or when it gets to action, then that does not happen.
When they come to visit, they come around in choppers. When then the food comes, it'll come with Land Rovers and Land Cruisers, which get stuck in the mud.
And it takes days to get to people who need it.
The other day I was making fun.
Yeah.
When the CS Devolution visited and the governor happened to come around, he comes with around 15 vehicles, pickup, double cabs, and I was like, all this fuel, why can't they convert it into food?
Exactly. And you need all of those people on the ground.
on the ground to do what?
do what?
It's not politics.
Yeah. But what I've heard you saying, John Mondo, is that people are receiving food rations, at least. Nobody is sleeping hungry.
There's food ration that is being given.
Okay.
And I know some of the people who are willing to come and help. I happened to talk with the Ford Kenya party leader, Moses Wetangula. Most likely he will be doing his he will be providing some foods. I know the Raila's team is also planning something. So we are putting it open for any other person who is able to help the people.
Right. So it doesn't just have to be the area leaders. Anybody who can come in and lend some help at this point is welcome.
I think you should put a very strong caveat here, as long as you do not bring politics. Already, if politics is affecting the movement of people, evacuation of people to higher grounds, you can imagine when Ford Kenya and ODM and all the others come bearing their political gifts.
Their political
and rhetoric.
mantra.
John Mondo, senior broadcast journalist in Budalangi, we thank you very much for speaking to us. Keep doing the good work and reaching out to the people and asking the hard questions on the ground.
Yes.
We'll get back.
Thanks so much,
we'll get
John.
in touch with you in coming days to hear what's happening.
Okay. You're welcome.
Asante sana. 25 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. We are still talking about floods and the effect of floods, especially in Budalangi. If you're anywhere in the Nyanza region where the lake has basically started backflowing and the rivers are full, please get in touch with us. 0719 012 600. Good morning.
Let's take a look outside of Nairobi. For some reason, between Maimahiu and Suswa, vehicles are not moving at all. There's at least a kilometer of traffic on that road, so we don't know what the problem is right now. Possible that there could be an accident up ahead, but we'll find out and let you know. So if you're outside and in that particular area, that's what's going on there. We'll give you more information as we get it. All right, still on that side of things, quite a number of roads and bridges have been washed away with the current rain, so you need to be very careful when approaching these areas. A road that you thought you could use probably is not there now, so please be extremely careful as you approach some of these areas. And this is from Nakuru all along the rift, going then west towards Bungoma, Kakamega and Busia. All right, coming back into the city, we'll take a look at how it looks on Mombasa Road in a short while, but it shouldn't be too bad. Remember, you can reach us, Spy 7KE, let's know what you see, but for now, it doesn't look too bad.
To 8. This is a conversation. We are talking about floods. This is a bigger crisis than even COVID-19. How many people have died of COVID-19 so far?
24 people of
24
COVID-19.
people.
Then here, which is very shocking, so far the flash floods have killed 194 people. In the last 48 hours, 30 people have died.
In 48 hours, more people have died from the effects of flooding than those that have died from COVID-19 since mid-March.
Exactly.
And our focus is still, as a country, appearing to be the COVID-19. Well, it's also as big.
Yes, it's valid. But if I were in government, your COVID-19 hotspots, you know them.
Yep.
You're having measures on them. This, in my opinion, is another hotspot of another whole problem in itself.
And this is going to
30 people
long.
dying in 48 hours is 30 people too many.
Yeah.
because these are lives that you could have done something about. We need not report about people dying.
This you could avoid.
Yeah.
This you could avoid.
You can.
When we see them as ministers going to Met Department, it's because they recognize that the Met Department has a capacity to predict. And the Met Department has been issuing these warnings for long.
They told us in
They
January
keep
that this was going to
saying,
happen.
They
we're
keep
going to
saying-
have prolonged rainfall. You have likelihood of this happening, flash floods in these areas, landslides and mudslides in these particular areas. It's important that you get people to move to higher ground. Now, when the government comes and it's dealing the way it's been dealing with other issues with this particular crisis, just as here saying, you know what, these dams are full. We're going to have to release some water. And then people who live downstream will need to move. Hey, come on. You need to actually say, this is where we're going to put you up. This is
Yeah.
where you will stay. We're providing everything. Water, sanitation, food. Everything will be sorted here. And then once that subsides, we promise, and we will live by that promise, we will help you to relocate. Because at the same time, when these people are moving, they are leaving their houses. Those houses are going to be swept away by the floods. It's not that they're going to come back to find, oh, all right, so the house is still here waiting for me. No, they will need to go back and start reconstructing homes. This is not a support that just says move out. It's support that says let's walk this journey with you. And for people to actually buy into the issue of let's move, what John Mondo has just told us, the people in Budalangi are saying, I'm not willing to move. I've been moving every year. River Nzoia bursts its banks. We get flooded. We move to higher grounds. We suffer there in those camps for months. And then when time comes to move back home, we go back home. We find our homes were destroyed. Our land, our crops were destroyed. And the government is not assisting us in going back. Why do I want to do that again this year? It doesn't matter. Since 1961, I wasn't alive in 1961. I don't care. I'm talking about now. I was alive 2 years ago and the government did not support me. It's something that the government actually just needs to sit back and internalize the feedback from the people.
I think we come from a situation where we are not proactive. I mean, if we knew this thing since December, January, we could have done something about it.
Not
Not
just December,
December,
January.
January. This is an
September,
annual issue. This is something that happens
October,
every
we
year.
were talking about calling a national crisis and disaster in October, November last year because floods were ravaging the country.
Even
Met
then.
was saying this is unprecedented heavy rainfall and it's going to go on for long until mid next year. Met was telling us this.
We heard John tell us a few minutes ago that people, this is a way of life. This is a habit for them. They know that a certain time of the year it'll rain. They move, they come back. So it's now become habitual for them. Now, this is what I'm saying. A part of the country is prone to certain things as is. Whether it's prone to landslides, whether it's prone to famine, whether it's prone to desertification, whether it's prone to flooding. We already know. And there are reasons why we use certain government machinery to set things in place. It is clear that in other countries, there are ways in which things are done. Look at the California wildfires. Look at the Australia wildfires, for example, which they know every year is going to happen. It's an annual event. So as the summer months come, it starts to get hotter and hotter. They start sending to people, not just talking amongst the government, but they start sending advisories to people. And they say at this point, we are asking that you begin to move. Now, not just move wherever you want to go, but governments have already put in place alternate housing where people can move to so that even if your homes for example, get destroyed, there's insurance for rebuilding. There is even advice on what you're used on what real estate contractors are told to, the kind of material you should use to build particular houses so that they're either fire resistant or so that the level of destruction is not as high. So those things are in government policy from the very beginning because you're aware of where you live. The same thing can be done for landslides. Look at Rwanda, for example, that is a predominantly hilly country. And they know that they're also prone to landslides. They had the same thing that happened in West Pokot in December happen in Rwanda. But in August, it was a government policy and they started to tell people, move. We need you to move. And they were housed by the government, over 600 families housed by the government for a period of time. Were they able to mitigate the destruction? Absolutely, because they planned ahead of time. It is possible for these things to be done. And I think we need to get into they say it's never too late. We need to get into a way of thinking that allows us to plan for the future. But we can't do that unless there's deliberate focus or planning. It can't happen. We can't start thinking about the problem when the problem arrives. Then you're done. It has to, because in this case, nature has presented you with the schedule. Because it happens the same time every year. She has already told you, this is what I'm going to be doing. How about you prepare for it, right? I'm not going to stop. I will. We have technology that tells us what nature is planning to do. Why not use that technology? Why not use that expertise to be able to plan to mitigate such things? It shouldn't be that people in the country know, okay, come March, April, I'm going to have to move, but I'll be back. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. There should be something we should be able to do. People should not have to start from scratch every year.
And these games, so you get money from the World Bank for construction of better dikes. And then the excuse here is that the people refused to move.
Not an excuse.
2.5 years later, the people refused to move and there's nothing we can do about it. That's absolute
garbage.
Yes.
If you compare that with what happened with the construction of the SGR. I mean...
Yeah, even what happens with the construction of roads. Basically, have a conversation with the people. Let them know this is what we are doing. So this is a compensation. If somebody somewhere is trying to inflate the cost or trying to, to hoodwink the people so that they can end up eating the money themselves, look, get rid of those people. People will understand. We want to put up the dike here. We need this particular piece of land, and then we will move you from here, and we can help you even relocate.
Now,
we can give you money and help you relocate.
In Kariobangi on Monday, and compare it to this. How is it that you're able to bring in Sani? What's his name?
Sani.
There's a bulldozer,
right? The bulldozer, and you can move people's houses without a thought because something else needs to happen, right? In this case, you need to save life. Move people. Put the dike up in a way in which it needs to be done.
Yep.
And then you're still pussyfooting around the air and having a conversation about maybe. No?
For me, it takes me back to my default. Government does not know how to serve people.
It doesn't.
It's not used to it.
It's 8:15. The phone lines are open. 0719 012 600.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
So yeah, the conversation between the phone lines are open. I'd like to know what's happening where you are in terms of this flood crisis. 0719 012 600. Our focus seems to be just in the western region, but that's not all. I mean, it's everywhere in the country, wherever you are. In Nyanza, we know that Lake Victoria is overflowing, and it's flowing. It has a backflow along the river. It has reclaimed a huge part of land. City Muga keeps telling us the lake is going back to where it used to be.
It's default settings.
John Mondo, the journalist from Budalangi, is telling us several kilometers of land has already been reclaimed by the lake. Several kilometers means that there are people whose homes were in those kilometers and they are now homeless. They don't even know where they're going to live for the next couple of months. They're living in makeshift camps. They have moved to schools that are in higher ground. In those areas, they are requiring support in terms of food, in terms of mosquito nets, in terms of sanitation. They're saying, well, we are just using these toilets in this school, but we are more than the school population on a normal day, so we need more toilets. They require all kind of assistance. The government is coming up with structures, yeah. The government is coming up with plans, yeah. The local MP is meeting with some people. The county commissioner is meeting with some people. The CS is flying in and flying out.
But what are all these meetings yielding at the end of the day?
Nothing.
Are we meeting so that we say we've met, we have discussed, and
Tick
then
a
hold
box.
a press conference, 5 CSs backed by all manner of people to just give declarations?
Yeah, tick a box.
it's unfortunate because we are losing lives. We've displaced so many. We are risking the lives of those so many that we've displaced, and it's gonna just be another tragedy. And then we'll say, we're used to this happening, and then the cycle starts all over again, and it's tragic.
It's not good. I mean, where we are now, the painful part of all of this is that it can be done. It can be worked on. People have lived with nature for centuries. It's not a matter of we can't do anything about this particular issue. And to say that we needed money and we couldn't find the money, whereas we can find money for other things that, if in the light of it, are actually useless or not necessary. And when it comes to one life lost is one life too many. In the light of something that can be done when it comes to this flooding, it's a perennial issue. Perennial. Year after year after year, we see the same thing happening. And to get a solution, you can't give the same answer every year or the same excuse every year as to why something has not been done. It's either lack of funds or the initiation of politics or something else, for crying out loud. It has to be that people are vested in making sure that communities, societies continue to develop and thrive. That's what it's got to be.
Yep.
After that, if you don't, over whom then are you ruling? Whom are you leading?
It doesn't matter to them.
It
doesn't matter. Whether there are people, whether there are no people, it doesn't really matter. They don't see that far. We asked John about leadership on the community level. Now, actually, let's speak to one of the community leaders in the area. Frederick Andera is joining us on the line. Good morning, Frederick.
Asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Hujambo?
Mzuri kabisa.
Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Naitwa Frederick Andera. Kutoka Bunyala Sub-County.
Yes.
Bunyala Central Ward. Budalangi constituency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frederick, wewe ni kiongozi wa jamii hiyo hapo ambayo imeathirika na haya mafuriko.
Yeah.
Hebu tuambie hapo kwenu mko watu wangapi ambao wameathirika?
Hapa kwetu, in fact, Budalangi mzima imekuwa affected. Hizi 4 wards, but the most affected wards ni hizi sasa. Tuko na Budalangi imekata cross now, so northern part and southern part. So on southern part imekuwa affected, ndio inaanzia Siamungu hadi Osieko. Imekuwa affected yote, more than 30,000 people.
So 30,000 people wamekuwa displaced basically.
Yeah, wamekuwa displaced.
Wanaishi wapi sasa?
Kuna wengine wamevuka ngambo ya northern part kule iko juu, so wamewekwa pale. Wengine wako Mundere University. Alafu wengine wamerent tu hizo nyumba huko kando kando. Wengine wamepelekwa Samia, our neighboring constituency.
Na wale ambao wamebaki?
Wale ambao wamebaki wengine wamesonga mahali pamenuka kidogo, kama kuna maboma wengine ambao yako juu, maji yameyasurround tu. Lakini sasa wengine wamekuwa wako tu hapo. Alafu wengine wako kwa mashule, but mashule hiyo wako ndani, lakini maji huku nje ni maji tu.
So ndani ya classroom, wanaishi ndani ya classroom lakini maji imejaa nje kwa compound.
Yes, ndani ya classroom lakini nje kuna maji.
Na chakula wanapataje hawa watu wote?
Sasa you see that is the problem, but chakula so yesterday jana government, national government na county government wameanza kuleta kusupply chakula kwa at least mchele. Jana tulireceive mchele na chakula hizo zingine mahindi. Yes.
How long is this going to last, Wandera? How long is this help going to last from what you're hearing?
Hii maji bado inakuja. Haina, hatujui itaisha lini, manake ndio sasa inakuja tu. Mpaka hii mvua iishe ndio sasa tuanze kuona hii itaisha lini. Lakini mpaka saa hii hatujajua because mvua bado inanyesha.
Na kama sasa kiongozi wa local community leader,
yes,
what kind of structure do you have in place in terms of at community level and working with the government, both county and national government? Mkona
Plan ambazo tuko nazo. Plan ambazo tuko nazo in fact ziko tu in place. Tuko na in fact hii dike tuko na contractor wala World Bank wanaendelea kuitengeneza, lakini sasa kwa sababu tu watu wengine wamechelewa kulipwa masamba ambao zilikuwa karibu na nini na ziko karibu na dike zilikuwa kwamba walipwe ndio sasa watoke. So kuna watu wengine wamelipwa, wengine bado. Kwa nini hawajalipwa? Ni mambo tu unajua, sasa hawajalipwa kwa sababu mambo ya nani ana ownership ya land. Manake pengine babu yake alikufa na ndio alikuwa kwa hiyo kwa parcel number, sasa wanataka wa change. Sasa hiyo kubadilisha inachukua time kidogo. Yes.
Kwa nini inachukua time? Na ni serikali tu ni ile moja mwenye aliandika ni hiyo serikali yenye nataka kununua shamba. Why would it take so long to just change?
Na unajua sasa pengine unajua watu pengine hawajasikilizana. Unajua serikali pia haitaki watu ambao pengine jamii ambayo familia ambayo imebaki hawataki kusikilizana upesi, so that hii mambo ikwishe. So hiyo ndio kitu kidogo inaleta serikali pia inachelewa. Yes.
Okay. Na Frederick, umesema watu wanaishi classroom, wako surrounded na maji. Kuna wengine ambao wameenda some raised ground but they are still surrounded by water. Mtu akikuwa mgonjwa ama akitaka kwenda kuhudumiwa mahali, kina mama ambao ni wajawazito, watoto ambao wanahitaji chanjo, nini inafanyika sasa wakitaka kutoka hapo kwenda kutafuta huduma za afya?
Sasa hapo ndio problem, but as per now viongozi mbunge na MCA wameweka mikakati ya maboti. Kuna maboti zinapita. So mtu kama huyu akipatikana wanamweka kwa boti, wanampeleka Port Victoria Hospital. Yes.
Na mahospitali hajakuwa submerged kwa maji kama vile tunaona mashule, maboma za watu.
Ile apoti hiyo iko juu, but hii ya Muhobola iko submerged. Hii maji iko tu ndani, hata madaktari huwa walirudi huko port. Hawako hapa. Yes.
Alafu Frederick, wakati mwingine tunaonanga sana Red Cross inahudumia watu. Sijui je kama pia wako huko kuhudumia watu ama kushughulikia watu ambao wanahitaji msaada, kama hata kuwapatia chakula ama kuwasaidia kufika mahospitalini? Mko na Red Cross on the ground?
Red Cross. In fact hii maji wakati ilipoanza ilianzia kule Mualo, mahali tunaita, ilianzia Mualo, wale ambao wako karibu na lake. Unajua tumekuwa na backflow ya maji ikirudi huko kutoka kwa lake. So hapo Red Cross waliingia. Lakini aspanao kwa wengine pengine kama atakuja kesho ama leo. Mpaka saa hii pande hii hatujaona Red Cross, lakini upande ile nyingine walianza nao wale wa kwanza. But watu ni wengi hata mpaka wajipange.
Na serikali ya county nayo?
Serikali ya county hata jana wametuletea unga ya ngano, ziko ndio watu sasa wanaenda kupeana. Serikali ya county wameanza kuleta pia kitu kidogo.
Lakini nazo hema, those who are living in tents wanapata wapi hema?
Kupata
tents.
Hello?
Watu wanatoa wapi tent?
Tunaona watu wanaishi kwa hema.
Sasa problem ni tent hizo. Tent sasa wao wengine wanakomboa kwa wala mbali kwako, mtu akiwa na mbili alikuwako na mbili, pengine especially watu walikuwa NIB walikuwa amenunua tent zile ambao anatumia kwa mchele tuliko. Najua pande ward ya Central Ward tuko na NIB, National Irrigation Scheme ya kulima mchele. So hizo tent kuna wakulima walikuanga nazo wakitumia. Na yule ambao hana tent anahangaika tu. Sasa hiyo ndio problem ya kupata hizo sapling. Sapling hakuna.
Okay, Frederick, this is something that happens every year. Even you've been a victim. Every year this thing happens.
Yes.
What do you think the solution is to this flooding problem and everything that comes with it?
The solution ni kujenga tu permanent nini? Ni kujenga permanent dai vile walikuwa wameanza. That is the solution. Na vile nimekuambia ni hali tu ya kwanza ya kulipa nini, ya kulipa hawa vitu ambao anataka watoke kwa maboma yao. Hiyo tu, lakini solution ni kujenga permanent dai. That is the solution.
That's the solution.
Frederick Andera, thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Frederick.
Yes, sir.
Tutakupigia tena ndio tujue mambo yanavyoendelea huko.
Yeah.
Asante sana.
Asante.
The conversation on flooding is our today's conversation. All right, so we'll still be continuing with this, but in the next hour we'll talk to two ambassadors. One, the ambassador of Ireland to Kenya, and the other one is the ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium to Kenya. Stay with us for that conversation. Today's proverb is from the people of Igbo in southeastern Nigeria. A chick that will grow into a cock can be spotted the very day it hatches. All right, a chick that will grow into a hen can be spotted the very day it hatches. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's now 8 o'clock.
Traffic on Mombasa Road is being caused by a number of lorries that have lined up on the side of the road this morning for some reason or another. And also on the other side, going towards Imaradaima, there's traffic. So in and outbound, there seems to be something going on Mombasa Road that's affecting traffic, then all the way to General Motors. Fortunately, though, after General Motors, you should have an easy time. We still have the situation between Maimahiu and Suswa this morning. Vehicles not moving, a kilometer plus of traffic. Trying to find out what's going on up there ahead. If you're in that area traversing that road, please be careful, or maybe you can let us know exactly what is going on. Entering into the CBD, not a problem this morning, still looks good. Likely to see heightened traffic levels in the evening, but now you can get through easily. Twitter, SpiceFMKE, that's how you can reach us and let us know what it is that you see.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications
also in the room
expert.
this morning is Dr. Mercy Korir. C.T. Muga is away for the week. Now, we receive a lot of support from our development partners, right? Last week we were speaking to the European Union and also understanding what exactly they're doing. So today, let's also speak to two ambassadors who will be joining us shortly. This is Nicholas Nehon, he's the ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium, and Fionnuala Quinlan, who's the ambassador of Ireland. We want to hear what these two countries have been doing. Let's first of all actually go straight into the line and speak to the ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium, His Excellency Nicholas Nehon. Good morning.
Good morning. Very happy, very delighted to be today with you.
We're also very happy and excited that you could join us.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes.
Good morning, Ambassador.
So
Good morning. Good morning.
Ambassador, in the Situation Room this morning is Dr. Mercy Korir and Ndu Oko, and my name is Eric Latif. And we basically want to understand what the Kingdom of Belgium has been doing, in terms of supporting us as a country, and also looking at how Belgium, first of all, is dealing with COVID-19. I think let's just start off from there in terms of the numbers and the kind of measures that the Kingdom of Belgium has instituted to manage COVID-19. What's happening in Belgium?
Well, actually, as you know, we've been pretty much hit by the virus. We have something like 7,000 people who died, actually, and many more who are infected. We were not on the front line like Italy, and that gave us time a bit more to organize. We did a complete lockdown, and people had to stay at home, and it lasted for almost 2 months. And now we're actually in the phase where, from the 4th of May, we are, restarting a bit the activities, allowing some companies to reopen, allowing people to leave more frequently their houses, meeting a few number of people, very close acquaintances. And we're going to reopen the schools soon. And as you might imagine, it's a bit in this kind of game, a bit of try and error kind of situation where you are acting with very much caution, but if you go too fast, you might face the consequences. And for that, I would like to say, whatever the government does, there will be people criticizing.
Of course.
Because if you don't do it, you're blamed. If you do it, you blame also. So I really hope that this reopening and restarting of the economy is gonna work for us, but it's gonna also depend on the virus and how it has spread and how it might strike again, if hopefully not.
So, Your Excellency, so you're saying that before the 4th of May, there was like a total lockdown?
There was a total lockdown. People were supposed to stay at home, but of course they were allowed to go to supermarkets and to some shops in their neighborhood, to do some shoppings. That's what. But people were supposed to restrict very much their little travels. Inside the country, and the police was also there, to check what people were doing on the road, making sure they're not going to see their friends 50 kilometers away. So it was psychologically, like in any countries of Europe, a difficult situation for the families. Kids had to stay at home. Parents had to school their children at home. So quite a difficult situation. But we still have, economically speaking, also the possibility also to buffer a bit that people did a lot of teleworking, which helped tremendously. But there are, of course, some things which obviously cannot be made from home.
Joining us on the line as well, Ambassador Nicholas, is your colleague from the Republic of Ireland. This is Ms. Fionnuala Quinlan. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us and agreeing to speak to us.
Good morning.
My pleasure.
So I'm just going to throw that question that we had thrown to Nicholas just before you joined us. The situation in terms of the war against COVID-19 in Ireland.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity to come on. So Ireland currently has around 22,000 cases of COVID. Maybe just to give your readers a little bit of context, our population is around 5 million, so something around the population of Nairobi, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right.
We've had about 1,350 deaths, but our government reacted very, very quickly, actually, as soon as the first cases of COVID started really to become apparent. They instituted quite a strict lockdown. So something like, I think what I caught the end of what Nicola was saying, schools closed, many businesses closed, people working from home and so forth. Only really essential workers out and about. And actually, currently, or rather, up until just very recently, people could only travel within 2 kilometres of their home.
Yeah.
And the over 70s, of course, who we know are particularly vulnerable to this virus, were actually mandated to stay at home, and people were asked to support them through, doing their shopping and so forth. So now the government has set out a very clear and slow, I suppose, exit from the virus. So starting from the 18th of May, we'll have a 5-step exit from the virus that will bring us up to August, which is when, I suppose it is hoped at least things will be as back to normal as they can be in terms of, bigger gatherings, pubs opening and so forth. But between now and then, it's a very gradual and slow easing of the restrictions. And the government has warned that at any point, obviously, they'll be monitoring the number of cases, the amount of testing and so forth. And at any point, if we see the virus resurging, they'll go back to stricter measures again. So that's where we are.
What is this 5-step exit strategy that you're talking about? It would be interesting to know, maybe a good learning point for the rest of us.
Okay, well, very quickly. So let's say from the 18th of May, some shops can open, but only. So, for example, shops selling IT equipment and outdoor shops, so garden centres, hardware stores. Outdoor meetings will be allowed, but only up to 4 people. And outdoor work, such as construction, can resume. So basically, very small gatherings and work and so forth that takes place outside.
Okay.
Then the second phase is the 8th of June, and that will allow smaller retail stores to open once they can put in the kind of physical distancing measures that we need, and libraries. And then 3 weeks later, we'll have cafes and restaurants allowed to reopen, but again with very strict physical distancing measures in place. Playgrounds will be allowed to reopen, which I'm sure parents will be particularly delighted with. And non-essential retail, so for example clothes shops and so forth, will be allowed to reopen.
Okay.
And then assuming all goes well, we'll move to the 4th phase on the 20th of July, where people will actually be allowed to move beyond the 20-kilometre radius. They'll allow small gatherings, including weddings and baptisms, but limited to family and close friends. And then those who haven't been able to go to work can return to work. And then finally, the last phase is August the 10th. And then, larger social gatherings will be allowed, still with restrictions, of course. I mean, I think we're going to be facing restrictions for some time everywhere in the world. And then on a phased basis, from that point on, from August on, schools and universities can reopen.
I love that plan. It sounds so elaborate, and it's clear to everybody. This is what we expect at a certain time.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. People have really been very good about complying with the restrictions, but of course they take a huge toll on people. And so I think the idea now that the light is at the end of the tunnel, we can see a hope in the future. It has been very, very helpful to people and really raised the mood on the island of Ireland.
Is it what informs the timelines or the time duration? Because you're very specific even on the dates, like 18th May, 8th June. Is there anything that has informed that time duration for each of the 5 phases?
Well, I think the thinking behind it is that there's 3 weeks between each step, which gives you adequate time to assess the impact of the change. So in that 3 weeks, obviously, they'll be very closely monitoring, the number of new cases, the number of admissions to intensive care, how many tests are being carried out. And if they see a spike then in transmission, that will be a trigger to maybe draw back in.
Right. So then it gives you enough time to make an added decision if you see that something is not going right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. If I can go to you, Ambassador Nihon, if we look at Belgium's involvement in previous pandemics, such as HIV/AIDS and Ebola also in West and Central Africa, we've been quite involved from a pharmaceutical research point of view. With the current pandemic, do you see that there would be some involvement from Belgium, or are there things going on in the background that we may not be privy to at this point?
You might be aware that in Antwerp we have the Institute of Tropical Medicine.
Yes.
The ITM. I just wonder, well, as you know, scientists sometimes they work in the shadow in silence. They need time and silence to work. And they've been actually working on a study to understand the transmission dynamics of this virus in different contexts and countries. And more specifically and more concretely, they're also busy doing a study on, and pardon me if I don't pronounce it correctly, this hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine, which is the normal area treatment, and to see if this treatment would be adequate not only for COVID outpatients, but also to see if that would be the right drug to mitigate the effect on the health workers, the health professionals, which are the most exposed, and which has to avoid getting the virus or to heal pretty quickly. And that's one thing. And the second thing is, of course, is the pharmaceutical, I would say, whole industry in Belgium, which is a very important chunk of our economy. And as you know, they're pulling their forces with different. With also different other companies of the world. I would like to mention, RIT, which is Research in Industry Therapeuticals, which is now part of the group GlaxoSmithKline. And this is, a real, this unit in Belgium is producing 2.5 million vaccines a day for all kinds of illnesses. In the world, and it's for sure that this company will be involved soon. It's kind of a race for time, and many companies in the world, in the U.S., in Europe, are trying to find something. The best is that they can pull their forces, and you might be aware that recently the UN organized some sort of a pledging conference. Where the European Union, but other member states of the European Union, also the UK and also China and some others, pledged to give some money, so that we can pull our force together to find a cure to that virus.
Coming back now into the effects of COVID-19 and what we are likely to see, one of course of the first industries to be hard hit was the travel industry, the airline industry. Airlines across the globe have parked their planes, and we are seeing, like in South Africa, the South African Airlines, the South African Airways has gone bust. There are many other airlines that are going to be affected. In your own country, one of your airlines, the national airline Sabina, went bankrupt in 2001, and then this ended up being replaced by the current Brussels Airlines. How exactly was this done? And looking, for example, with our own example of Kenya Airways, which is currently struggling even before the pandemic, and the Kenya Airways management is already looking at how they're going to try and recover out of this pandemic. What would you advise? I mean, what is it that happened with Brussels and Sabina that could be borrowed by Kenya Airways?
Let me first think that, though it's been like 19 years ago, the crash, if I might say so, of Sabina was really a trauma to the Belgians, because many families and for many generations, people work for that company that actually was created in 1923. You can imagine that. So I hope nothing like this can happen to Kenya Airways. Well, the company was bankrupt. You still had all the pilots. You still had the technical expertise to maintain the planes of Sabina, but also of many other airways. And there was a sense, and that's very important among our political masters. The sense of urgency to maintain a connection between Brussels, which is the capital of Belgium, but also the capital of the EU, and other European capitals, if not other capitals of the world. So what did the government did? He said, this time I don't want a company which is 100% owned by the state, which was the case of Sabina. And actually, this company was not making much profit. It was not commercially. A lot of money of the state was was put into that into that company. So they said, we want a private company, and they encouraged 40 investors to come together and to create SN Brussels in 2002. And this company said, now we're not going to go to Tokyo, we're not going to go to Washington. We're going to center our business first on Europe and a bit on the Great Lakes of Africa, where the market was always good for Sabina. Then it merged in 2006 with Virgin Express, which was a low-cost company. So this Brussels Airlines, became a bit like with a normal side and a low-cost side to it. And it became successful, and then Lufthansa, the big German group, then decided to take some shares in it, and now it's 100% owned by Lufthansa.
Yep.
So if we make a parallel with Kenya, the questions to ask yourself is, why would you entertain, an airway? Why do you need KQ? And the obvious reason is that you don't want to depend on other countries.
Yep.
For your citizens to travel, for your government officials to travel, for the tourists you want to attract. You don't want to have indirect connections. So, and also because you're a hub, economically. You don't want to be isolated. But the big questions after that is at what cost? And for the Belgian politicians, they say, it doesn't make sense to have a huge company in Europe, which is a very crowded field, and we don't want to use too much taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
So I think it's a call for the Kenyan government to say, how much money am I able to put in it, and to make sure that this money is efficient, and it's not just going to for perks for pilots and the crews and the whole administration of the company, because actually Sabina, working for Sabina, was a very, very good, was a very good job. But actually people were very, very highly paid, and it was just not sustainable.
So just draining the rest of the economy.
Exactly.
Okay. My question, I think, will go to the both of you. We are, as a globe, we are looking at a treatment or a vaccine for the COVID-19, for the coronavirus. And where we are, we would be at a disadvantage being a resource-limited society or resource-limited country as opposed to Ireland and Belgium. Where do you see Kenya or Kenyan scientists, the Kenyan population, playing a role in being a part of, the global effort to get a solution and a permanent solution to the current crisis?
Well, Sinula, you can have a first shot.
Thank you, Nicola.
It's tricky.
But I think the search for a virus is really a global one, and the work is going on all over the world, and we keep seeing articles and reports around scientists in Israel or England or the US or whatever, really pressing ahead with this important work. And I did read during the week actually that there will be some of the drugs that are likely to treat coronavirus will be trialed in Kenya along with other areas of the world. Obviously there is work going on here as well on that, but I think the whole world is working very hard on that. And actually just this week our Prime Minister announced we were contributing 18 million euros, so around $20 million, to Gavi, which is the Global Vaccine Alliance. And their work is to procure and distribute vaccines once they're developed. So we're focusing our efforts. I mean, Irish scientists, of course, in various labs around the world are working on this really important work. But we're focusing on kind of putting money into, I guess, the global architecture to try to ensure that a vaccine, when it comes, will be safe, of course, in the first instance, but accessible to countries that, as you said, are more resource limited.
My answer to that would say, of course, countries are different, and we are at different stages of development. We know, of course, there are also very good scientists in Kenya, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere that they were, pulling together, to work on certain things. I'm not sure what it was. I think what the crisis showed is that the health system of Kenya, could be under stress for the moment. But so far, so good. But I think the first thing, Kenya can do is to put, I would say, the whole health organization system and in connection with the counties, to put that in order. I think this is the most important thing that actually can help. The vaccine will come, but we don't know when it will come. The tests, everybody's been, I would say, lacking those tests, which impairs us actually to know how far the virus is spread. The questions of the mask. So I think the best thing for Kenya to do is to keep organizing oneself on the ground with the counties, with the hospitals, and as we've seen also, and with the help of the European Union, also try as fast as possible to produce this basic equipment like the PPE, like the masks, like the ventilators. And I think that thanks to those efforts, I think the health system of Kenya will emerge much better after the crisis than it was before.
Right, Ambassador Fanyula.
Can I make an additional comment there, because we have a business organisation called Business Ireland Kenya, and yesterday we had the CAS for Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, with us over video, explaining to us how the Kenyan government have set themselves up to respond, and it was really very, very impressive. Just the comprehensive number of committees all tasked with dealing with, different issues. But particularly she spoke about how this crisis is really facilitating, I suppose, innovations in service delivery. So she gave some examples around, for example, prescriptions and, how they're now patients are being given, much longer prescriptions so they don't have to come back, but also the use of technology in healthcare and their partnerships with the private sector to develop innovations. And all of those, I think, will persist long after we've beaten COVID. So in a way, if there's a bright spot to be taken from it, I think it is that COVID is actually driving innovation in the healthcare system that we hope will mean that Kenya emerges stronger from this crisis.
From the crisis. Ambassador Fanyula, still on that, one of the other areas that we look at hugely is food security, and we know that Ireland is very big on that, and we can see that through a lot of the partnerships, especially with agriculture in this country. Now, looking in times of COVID, we see that food is one of the biggest things that is needed. Would like to know a little bit more about those partnerships that you have with Kenya and what you feel should have been done to at least make steps towards food security in Kenya.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Before COVID, of course, food security was a huge issue in the world as a whole. And we know that 1 in 9 people are hungry, up to a third of our population are undernourished. And that has lifelong consequences, particularly for children. And Ireland has always made hunger actually a real cornerstone of our development programme. And that comes, I think, of our own experience of food insecurity. Ireland suffered a devastating famine in the mid-19th century that killed 1 million people and 1 million and more emigrated. And that, even though it's more than 150 years ago, it's still very much with us.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we dedicate more than a fifth of our entire development budget towards tackling hunger. That is, of course, responding to emergencies, but even more importantly, I think, working to prevent these big emergencies. And that is through supporting smallholder farmers, which brings me to our work in Kenya, of course. So in Kenya, I'll just say very briefly, our development program here is focused on 3 areas. The first, as I mentioned, is agriculture. The second is support to the private sector. And then the third is education. Right. And we look at all those 3 areas through the prism also of how do we support the climate and, be climate smart in all of our interventions, but also youth and women. But if I come to agriculture in particular, I mentioned to you the famine, of course. Now Ireland is a country that, with a population of 5 million, produces enough food for 35 million.
Right.
So we export around 90% of our dairy in particular, but also our other food to 180 markets around the world. So really, when it comes to Kenya, I suppose what we're trying to do is share the lessons that we've learned on that journey with Kenya. So we work across 3 value chains in Kenya. One is potato, and also dairy, and we're also looking at fisheries, which we have some expertise in. But in terms of potato, we have a 1 million 3-year program focused in Nyandarua that's really looking at how do we increase potato productivity and through that improve livelihoods and, of course, food security. Because the potato is the second most important crop in Kenya, the Irish potato, in fact.
Yes, the Irish one.
So, yeah, and I suppose, I mean, when we looked at the Kenya sector, you see that there's a lot of challenges that we also faced. So that might be around, if it's dairy, it's around kind of low feed and maybe some low technical skills in some parts. With potatoes, the big issue with seeds and having really good seeds. So our potato program is focused on providing improved seeds and training to smallholder farmers, but also supporting the production of high-quality seeds in Kenya rather than importing seeds. So trying to build the indigenous seed industry, obviously, which is of much more benefit to Kenya. Also, we know that up to 40% of yields are lost post-harvest. So we've had a big project to build storage facilities in 5 counties. And we're also, as part of this program, looking at the public-private elements. So once smallholder farmers are improving their yields, well, is there somewhere that they can sell them to? So building market linkages, but also looking at possibly supporting a processing plants and so forth. So that it's a really integrated support system that adds value at every point of the chain. Quickly, I'll mention dairy as well, of course. Again, we have a 1 million program over 3 years here that is very much built on our experience of building our dairy sector. The dairy sector in Kenya is really important. We know that 1.8 million smallholder farmers are involved in dairy and that demand is growing. So therefore, this is an area that could really add value to Kenya. So our program here is, as I said, drawing on some of the lessons that we've learned. So it's around using research and development and genetics to essentially determine which breed of animal is best suited to the various areas that we're working in and what type of feed and fodder would most boost their productivity. So our agricultural research and development agency in Ireland, it's called Chagas, they're working very closely with Calro and bringing that expertise and working very much, of course, in a Kenyan context, in a context that's suited to the conditions here. Again, it's a program that focuses on women and youth and looks very much at being climate smart. So ultimately, we'll have an innovation hub also in Naivasha, where smallholder farmers will get training and extension services, and really, they'll be shown very clearly how to boost their dairy productivity. And finally, the thing I'd mention is we, in Ireland, again, we saw the real importance of cooperatives in terms of allowing farmers, to band together, to buy inputs at a lower price, to sell at a better price. So we're supporting really high potential cooperatives here in Kenya as well, and those that particularly involve women and youth and are engaged in climate smart agriculture. So that, at every point, again, we're just trying to build the value because of what we said around the importance of agriculture to food security. We know that up to 85% of people in rural Kenya depend on agriculture for their livelihood. So if you can make an improvement in that, you can really support Kenya and the Kenyan government achieve, the food security element of the Big Four and Vision 2030.
Thank you very much. I want to take a short break, take a look at traffic, and then continue this conversation. So just stay on the line. On the line with us this morning, Ambassadors Fionnuala Quinlan of Ireland and Ambassador Nicholas Nihon from the Kingdom of Belgium. We know that we are fighting COVID-19, but also it's important to look at Kenya's relation with our international partners and international friends. And that's why we're having a conversation with these two. Good morning. It's 28 minutes to 9 o'clock.
All right, taking a look at what's happening on Mombasa Road, it's not so bad. Things seem to have opened up just a little bit. Still see some traffic round about Jogo Road heading into the CBD, but that also is not anything too major. So right now we see that most traffic that was there has disappeared in most parts. Outside of the city, we still see that problem from Maimahiu to Suswa, and that kilometer stretch of traffic is quite something this morning and keeps being added onto. Hopefully, and a lot of those are trucks and trailers, so hopefully that will be sorted out in a short while. Apart from that, it's not so bad. We'll take a look at what may be happening in other parts in a bit. Remember, you can get in touch with us, SpiceFMKE on Twitter.
Traffic.
Nairobi City this morning, partly cloudy conditions in others, but definitely will be an afternoon of rain. Highs of 23. In Nyeri right now, the light rains are now what continue to come down, mostly cloudy conditions, and then rain coming back with highs of 22. In Nakuru at 17 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. We'll see rain showers later with highs of 24. Taking a look then into Eldoret at 14 degrees, we'll see rain showers later with highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Kisumu at 21 degrees, showers expected in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 20. Mombasa is looking mostly cloudy now, but it will enter into an afternoon of rain with highs of 28 and lows of 26. Malindi at 24 degrees is still raining, and it will continue that way through most of the day with highs of 29. Taking a look into Mombasa, we did already, and it's mostly cloudy. Kampala at 20 degrees is mostly cloudy. Rain expected very soon with highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 26 degrees. It has warmed up, highs of 30 and lows of 24 with intermittent rains throughout the afternoon. Taking a look then into Johannesburg, it's still a foggy morning at 8 degrees. It'll go into partly cloudy conditions through most of the day with highs of 21 and lows of 7. In Lagos right now, it's clear skies at 27 degrees. Clear skies, though, will be clouded up and an afternoon of rain with highs of 33 and lows of 26.
(20:49). We continue our conversation this morning in the Situation Room. Eric Latif, Nduloko, Dr. Marcy.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
And the ambassador of Belgium, Nicolas. Let's now bring the conversation to where the three countries, Kenya,
Morning
and Belgium.
done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Belgium, Nicolas, you'll tell us, is the gateway to Europe. And then Ambassador Fionnuala, you'll tell us how countries, very many of the multinationals that we see operating in Middle East and Africa have their headquarters or hubs in Ireland. So let's start with what does it mean for Belgium, for instance, to be the gateway to Europe?
You can use gateway, you can use crossroads, you can use the word maybe hub. First, I would say when you talk about a hub or a gateway, it's what is given and what you make out of it. The given, the geography, Belgium is a country that is stuck between France, Germany, the Netherlands, and across the channel you have the UK, and with an access to the North Sea, which is actually the busiest sea of the world, in a region which has always been historically densely populated. That's the given, and then this is what we made of it. We built all kinds of railroads, roads. We developed very much the port of Antwerp, which is the second biggest port of Europe, and which in turn became a big chemical hub. And in fact, the more we built, the more we developed, the more we attracted. I think Kenya has always been, I would say, if I make a comparison, a link between the Indian Ocean and landlocked countries like Uganda, and it has not changed. it has also been at the crossroads of two worlds. I see from on the one hand Sub-Saharan Africa, and then the Gulf, and by extension, the road to Suez, and then to India.
Yep.
And then it's what do you make out of it? And we see that there are roads. There is a train which has recently been modernized, the SGR. You're developing ports in the framework of the LabSet. And you have Kenya Airways, we told it, which is something very important in this infrastructure. You also have a banking sector which is well developed. But as I said, it's not about just proclaiming, I'm the capital or the heart of Europe, as many actually countries could say in Europe. Or it's not just proclaiming for Kenya, I'm the gateway of East Africa, but this is the work you're making, and the way you make yourself, I would say, useful and, if possible, indispensable. And I think this is what we see for the moment. Kenya has a lot of assets. There is also, of course, the competition of some neighbors, but I think Kenya, frankly, has it all to be and to maintain its position.
It has the upper hand. Gateway. But if you were to make comparisons between what you say Belgium has done and what it has done over many years and what Kenya has been doing, would you say that Kenya is following the path that Belgium took?
I mean, it's let's be honest. It's very difficult to compare. Belgium has the size of half of the county of Turkana, right? We have half the size of this. And we have been, as I said, in always a very densely populated region of Europe. So everything is very close, everything is very near, right? But I think you have to have a sense of, I think, what lacks for the moment, I think, in Kenya, but it's not just Kenya, it's in the region, and the EAC, is some sort of a common understanding of who's doing what and who's stronger at doing what, so that when you build a train, when you build a pipeline, when you talk about, moving oil, about harbors on the coast of the Indian Ocean, that you have at least with your neighbors some sort of a good understanding and a deal for the co-financing of these infrastructures. Otherwise, this competition might be, a big loss of energy and money for many countries of the region. And I think the EAC is actually the place where to discuss these things. And it would be good to see more serious discussion instead of, you can see, this competition that is maybe not the healthiest, I'd say.
Yeah. Ambassador Feniola, what has made Ireland become the hub of all these multinationals operating in the Middle East and Africa?
Well, I suppose the key thing to think about is, I suppose the government put a lot of policies in place. I mean, Ireland is a country that doesn't have huge natural resources. I mean, obviously we've fertile land and seas and so forth, but our government really, about 50 to 60 years ago, made a decision to move from being quite protectionist to being really open and globalized. And now, in fact, we're the second most globalized country in the world. We're a small, very open economy. I worked in the US before coming here, and a lot of US companies have invested in Ireland. And very often when I spoke to the leaders of companies that have their headquarters in Ireland, their big operations in Ireland, the number one thing they would say to me is talent. So Ireland is a very young, very educated workforce. We have a big international population. In fact, 1 in 6 people on the island of Ireland weren't born there. So we've a big international population as well. But just a very productive, I think, and dynamic workforce, and educated, of course. And we've a very pro-business environment as well. So, kind of really trying to make it as easy as possible for business to set up in terms of red tape and so forth. We have a very competitive and stable tax rate at 12.5%. And actually, and this brings me to Kenya, I guess, we have a very dynamic and successful agency which has focused on and has become a world leader actually on attracting FDI, and that's the IDA. And basically they offer a full service. So when people come to look at should they invest in Ireland, one thing I should also mention before I move on to the idea is, of course, our membership of the European Union, which gives us barrier-free access to 450 million people. Also, of course, we're English-speaking. But with the IDA, I mean, this is a state agency that if you come to Ireland and you're an investor and you're looking at should I invest here, they will bring you on site visits. They'll organise the legal and recruitment and visa side of things for you. Mm-hmm. They'll assess property and really give you all of the information and the connections and the assistance that you need. I mean, I've even heard them joke. They'll some of the things they've had to do with for investors, like, yes, we will organise to get your dog to Ireland for you. We can do that. But in short, they set out to do everything possible to bring them here. Mm-hmm. And actually, as part of our support to Kenya to build and really develop your own very vibrant and innovative private sector, a company that involves former staff from the IDA is now working with Ken Invest, with the support of the embassy, to develop the one-stop centre that will do exactly the things I just spoke about that the IDA does. So, really give you the information, or give investors looking at Kenya the information and connections and assistance they'll need. And we've also supported Ken Invest to really build up their technology so that they're communicating and tracking all of the leads and the clients and so forth, as you need to do. Mm-hmm. So again, I mean, yes, we've the top 5 software companies in Ireland, top 10 global pharma companies in Ireland, and it's really, I think, testament to, the people, the policies, and the quality of life that people can enjoy there. Mm. That's some of that learning, I guess, that we're sharing elsewhere as well.
Okay. Looking at the economies across the globe with the COVID-19 effects, we are likely to suffer serious hits, everyone, all countries. That's one. 2, personal relationships have been strained in the COVID era. And as by extension also, relationship between countries are bound to be strained here and there. How are we going to, rebuild or reorganize ourselves as a globe, different countries, so that we strengthen relationship or we mend the ones that have been broken because of the current COVID pandemic, so that we can now grow our economies from a Belgian perspective, from an Irish perspective?
Well, I can maybe start by saying 2 things. I think for us Europeans, there is a lesson in this. We saw when the crisis broke out that there was also a tendency to shut down and do things at a national level. But we have the European Union, and I think that it's a lesson. We have to work even more together, jointly. Mm-hmm. So this is a homework for us inside the European Union. And we've seen that along the weeks, the path to cooperation has been much. We went back to much more cooperation at the very beginning of that crisis that spread fears among the nations. The second thing is a homework for the world, which is multilateralism. This has been many times, put forward also by Kenya and the Kenyan authorities. We want a rule-based world. We want the nations to work together. We have the UN. We have many international organizations. Mm-hmm. We have the WHO, right? And that some people have been heavily criticizing the WHO. Yeah. No, we have to work together. And because those tendencies to unilateralism are, spreading around in the world. And I think this crisis shows that, our system of economy is global. Mm-hmm. We depend on one another. If someone is worse off, it's not because someone is worse off, you're going to be better off. No, we're all in this together, and we have just to strengthen these organizations that we have. What would we do without WHO? What would we do without the UN? Mm-hmm. We would be lost. We have a framework. We have all these agencies. So please, let's work together. And I think here in Kenya, we have a very strong partner.
All right. In terms of okay, go ahead. Sorry, Ambassador Funio, go ahead.
No, I was actually just going to endorse absolutely everything that my friend and colleague Nicola just said. I think he captured it really, really strongly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in terms of partnerships and in terms of looking into the future, I mean, if we from everything that both of you have said this morning, whether it's partnerships in across sector, whether it's in research, food security, in jobs for the youth, going forward, are these lines along those which you will continue? Because we look at the future in a lot of times and saying that collaboration is probably one of the best ways to go to achieve anything. Is this your thought as both countries for Kenya?
I mean, I'm sure that as far as Belgium is concerned, we want to start again and keep doing what we've been doing in Kenya. Let me mention that we are actually giving many state-to-state loans to Kenya in very important sectors, just like the energy, in the water sector, in the medical sector. These state-to-state loans are some sort of a gift because they involve a 35% gift, and they are small or medium-sized projects aiming at really equipping Kenya along the way of its economic development. So this is certainly something we want to keep doing. I think it's the message of most countries want to restart as soon as possible, knowing that the world will not be exactly as it used to be, but this is our dearest wish.
I mean, from an Irish perspective, I suppose I would just say we've had such a long and deep relationship with Kenya, going back right to when the missionaries first arrived here, and many of them are still here, and they're remaining throughout COVID, I have to say. Some of them, even though they're in their 70s and 80s, continuing to work in informal settlements and so forth. But from there, now we have a very good business relationship with Kenya, actually. A lot of two-way trade and investment, a lot of visits both at political and at business level. And our firm wish, we're working together on Young Scientists Kenya.
Yeah.
Our really firm wishes to continue to build on those relationships, to really work on improving and increasing the two-way trade relationship, because I know from speaking to senior Kenyan people, that is, that's what people want. And actually we had our first trade visit from Ireland to Kenya. 40 companies came here last November, 40 Irish companies, led by our Minister for Business and Enterprise. And they signed, between here and South Africa, they signed 4.8 billion worth of deals, and actually the majority of them were in Kenya. So I think the future is very bright, actually. I mean, once we emerge from this very, really, really difficult crisis that's affecting the world over, I think we'll all be working very hard to increase and to build on our relationships at political and at business and people-to-people levels. And actually, you asked me earlier about Ireland's work on hunger and so forth, and one very important thing to mention is, many of your listeners, I'm sure, will have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals, a set of goals that guide how we can tackle the big development challenges between now and 2030.
Yes.
That whole process that involves essentially the whole world, all 190 plus countries at the UN, was actually co-chaired by Kenya and Ireland. So you're the gentleman who's now PS at the MFA, and Sharia Kamau, and one of my colleagues, David Donoghue, who was the Perm Rep in New York at the time, managed to bring all of those countries along and forge this really important international consensus. So there's a really good example of where our two countries have led on a very important global agreement, and we certainly would like to see much more of that.
Maybe a final question for both of you yet again. If you were to give a scorecard of how you feel that Kenya, this country that you've chosen to partner with on so many different fronts, is doing when it comes to development and upholding the tenets of such collaboration, what would it be from your point of view?
A scorecard on Do we have to give a score?
Well,
like for a pupil at school? No. I think that we know there are big needs in Kenya. But Kenya is also, compared to other countries of Africa, many assets. Many assets. So I think the Kenyan government has been, very eager to partner. Is making the most of, I would say, all the possibilities that is offered to the country at the multilateral level, at the international level with the EU. Building these relationships and these partnerships with the different countries, and I would say that even sometimes I have the impression that the offer is somehow, bigger than the demand and the capacity of absorption of Kenya. So I would say that on that front, I think that somehow a more capacitation of the different level of the administrations would help Kenya just to go even further and make the most of actually all these countries gathering around and saying, I can do this for you. I can offer that. I can offer vocational training. I can help you to develop your economy.
Yeah.
Just to agree with what Nicola has said, Kenya, of course, is facing the COVID crisis, which is immense and being felt globally, but there's also, Kenya seems to be suffering a lot from climate and the whole, series of droughts and floods and so forth, of course, the locusts. And I saw a very worrying report yesterday whereby, they're from Samburu, there's just, huge swarms of them. So there are particular challenges as well that the government is dealing with. But from a global perspective, I guess, Kenya is, it's very dynamic, very entrepreneurial, the powerhouse to East Africa, really pressing ahead in technological gains. M-Pesa has talked about the world over in terms of leapfrog technology. The government has a very clear plan in Vision 2030, the Big Four, that, we as partners can align with. And of course, on the international stage, then Kenya plays a role in terms of peace and security. So, but COVID certainly is a huge challenge, and Ireland and the EU and our other partners are really keen to support Kenya and keen to work with you and try to ensure that the gains the country has achieved aren't lost through this very challenging period.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fenella Quinlan, Irish Ambassador to Kenya, as well as Nicola Anihon, the Belgian Ambassador to Kenya. Thank you for speaking to us, and we look forward to even more cordial relations between the three countries.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so very
much. Have a good day.
This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's about 5 to 9. What do you make of the conversation? Hearing the two ambassadors, and I'd like when they give their experience of their own countries and what their governments have done, especially now when you talk about fighting COVID-19. Immediately, those two governments went into serious, the most extreme measures, and now they start releasing those measures with time. It was not a question of, let's observe and see, let's see how it unfolds. The whole world is learning from this. They basically said, all right, so everybody stay indoors. And now they're saying, we're going to open up the economy. Belgium has already opened up from the 4th, and Ireland is going to start opening up on the 18th. And it's a very well graduated and very well laid out plan.
Well thought out, well laid out, well articulated. After that description, you don't need to ask many more questions. What
You
will
can start
happen
saying,
here?
But when will restaurants open? It's clear.
It's clear. It's indicated.
Yeah.
When will universities open? It is indicated. How many can we meet outside? It's indicated.
4.
It's very clear. And for me, that's very impressive. Like we have a plan, we have a strategy, and between phase 1 to phase 2, phase 3 to phase 4, we have 3 weeks in which time we observe and see what's happening. Are our numbers being affected in any way? Are our numbers growing? And what is the effect to the rest of the economy? So
if we need
it's
to
really
adjust,
well thought
we'll
out.
adjust, and we'll explain to you why
Exactly.
we are adjusting what we are adjusting. And look at the numbers that they have. They have. They still have very low numbers,
Right.
both Ireland and Belgium.
I think a lot of things also that aid in their in success and development of what they're able to do is that they've learned from mistakes that they made in the past. And we could assume that, oh, right, well, you had a leg up. Well, no, not really. Ireland talks about having, gone through famine, for crying out loud.
In
and
the
that's how
19th century.
In the 19th century.
We're
and
in the
that's how
21st.
they have a population of 5 million
million.
people, but produce enough food for 35 million people. So they
7
learned their
times more.
lessons. They learned their lessons and are able to use that
And up to date, they
operate
cannot.
today.
They do not relent on that. They know how important food security is. I mean, 5% of their GDP. I mean, that's a huge. That's a a fifth of their GDP. It's a fifth of their GDP. That's about 20%. This is huge.
Yeah.
You're not just joking around and saying, we'll observe, we'll see what happens. No, we're coming to the top of the hour. And then in the next hour, we bring the conversation back to how we are coping with floods. This is the bigger disaster in the country, and it's unfolding every part of the country. Today's proverb, a chick that'll grow into a cock can be spotted the very day it hatches. A chick that'll grow into a cock can be spotted that very day it hatches. This is a proverb from the Igbo of Nigeria. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Not much has changed. We still see it's all right getting into and out of the city, and that's Nairobi now. The little bit of traffic that we saw earlier, that hasn't changed much. If it does, we'll be sure to let you know, but you'll get where you're going in good time this morning and back. The evening, though, might be a different story, but we'll see. It's not so bad. It's quite clear wherever we look today. Spice FM KE, have about... if anything happens in the next half hour or so, be sure to let you know, and we'll be sure to let everybody else know about the situation.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko,
So it's now 2
Nigerian
minutes
by
after
birth.
9, and the Situation Room continues. The conversation this morning. Joining us this week is Dr. Mercy Korir in the studio. So let's head back to the issue of floods, all right? We spoke to John Mondo, a broadcast journalist in the area. We spoke to a community leader, Frederick Andera, who was telling us how the situation is basically. People are affected. Very many, tens of thousands of people are affected. They are living in makeshift camps. They are staying in schools. So even those that are in schools, basically you're in a classroom that is not flooded, but you cannot even step outside.
Remember, Frederick said they have boats.
They have boats to cross over from.
Remember, this was land before, where children are playing, running all over the place. But now, for you to move from one place to the other, and you need a boat. You can just imagine how that has just changed people's ways of life.
It's difficult. And the pictures that you keep seeing coming out of Budalangi, and you're seeing so many tents. Those tents are people's tents. People who, because of rice and all, they got some tarpaulins that they used to dry their crop on. Now they're using those as a shelter.
Yeah, you just prop it up with something to just cover you from the rain, not really from the cold.
And this is what brings in the issue of the basic needs. If the government is not sorting out that one first basic of shelter, and then we hear yesterday is when the county government started coming to distribute rice, and the national government brought in some grain. Water, sanitation are still a challenge.
Let's look at some good news still related to this disaster that's not COVID. And this is from Kapenguria through Red Cross. And with the West Pokot County, Kapenguria had, West Pokot had landslide effects in September. So in February of this year, the government plus Red Cross and other well-wishers, I've seen UNFPA on the list, came together to rebuild homes for families. And so they were handed over to the families yesterday, rebuilt homes in West Pokot. They were given mattresses and what they call dignity kits from UNFPA, just to have them start life all over again. And in one of the places you could see there's a lady holding a baby, her mattress, a blanket. Her house is well rebuilt. It has a roof, iron sheet roof, with a gutter. So I think there is hope when people come together for good. There's hope.
There is.
Yeah.
And we should never give up on hope. There are organizations that are working in the communities. For example, there's an organization called DSW, this German Foundation for World Population, that's working in Busia County, specifically in Budalangi. And now we're going to cross over shortly to speak to one of the officers. She's a gender officer with DSW, with Winfred Nkatha. When we see all these things of, floods and people moving and people being relocated and being rehoused, there are some things that we forget, the other softer side or the underbelly of our community. And I think it's important that we start having that conversation as well. Winfred, thank you very much for speaking to us, and good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good
Winnie.
morning, Winfred.
Morning to you.
So first, give us a bit of a background of what your organization does and what it's doing in Budalangi.
Okay, my name is Winnie Nkatha.
Yes.
I work with DSW. DSW in Kenyan terms is German Foundation for World Population. Yeah, and we mostly work with the youth in ensuring that their demand and access for health is met, and mostly on sexual and reproductive health. So in Budalangi, we have a project that is under sexual and gender-based violence, and we work along the beaches mostly of Bunyala West. And our major objective is basically to ensure a conducive environment for everyone at the fishing community, that they are able to enjoy their rights, they are able to fish, no matter if they are women or men, they are able to enjoy a free environment, free from violence. Yeah, and our project is like a pilot project that is to run for a number of months, that is like 19 months. And we hope that by then we will be able to have cases of violence reduced along the beaches in Budalangi.
Okay. With what is going on right now, Winnie, do you see that there would, because now, as it was ordinarily, there were heightened levels of, of violence and other vices that, you're definitely trying to fight. Do you see that there will be an increase of this with what we see now? Because people are living in a fractured state of affairs right now. Will there be an increase, or how does this work continue, or is it hold on till further notice kind of status?
Yeah, of course, there is totally a change of the entire way of life, how people are living. And especially in Budalangi at the moment, we are facing two calamities. We have the floods, So we are distancing from the floods at the same time also from COVID-19. And this we see it as a major crisis for us as an organization that we have to deal with, and especially on the sexual and reproductive health. Such crises have a major impact on women and girls. We are looking forward to a place where we will have more cases of the women and girls are vulnerable and to mostly sexual violence and exploitation. Also, at such periods, the women might not be in a position to access the basic services that they do, like the family planning services. Also, they are more at risk of getting HIV within the camps. And they need interventions that can move them forward during this period, because there is total change of life. Like I had an interaction with some leaders in the community, and you see everyone is looking for some safety or a shelter. That is what matters most in times of crisis. So, like for the young girls that we deal with, most of them want a place that they can be secure instead of being held in like a class. The camps are like classes, schools, and such places. So instead of being held in such places, they are also looking for maybe a person who can host them. So if they get maybe a man who can host them, they are vulnerable to take up because it's a better shelter for them. So in such times, we take it as a risk environment for the women and for the girls. That is why we are not left behind in ensuring that we are with them during this crisis.
With the example that you've just given of the vulnerability and the possibility of exploitation of young girls in seek of a better shelter, have you dealt with any cases of that where you've had to intervene on behalf of some girls?
We are now currently receiving cases like that is a case that was shared, and we are putting measures on doing community sensitization and on ways that we can maybe interact with the community better at the camps to know of such cases, because also we are also observing the COVID-19 directives of we cannot do the meetings, the mini people meetings in the community, but we are free to receive such cases, and when we receive them, we will make sure that we are up to act on them.
What would you do? Provide alternative shelter? What kind of intervention would DSW put in place practically
for such cases of the girls? DSW, we work with different stakeholders like the government, like the hospitals, and like the police. In such cases, we know that SBDV is a crime, and taking advantage of a crisis like those for older men maybe to take advantage of the young girls who are vulnerable and are seeking for refuge in such times of a crisis is also a crime. So we are working with different law enforcement agencies like the police to ensure that those young girls are kept safe at the camps, and also that in such cases, in case of people who have taken away the girls, because it's something that even happens when there's no crisis. We've had cases of fish for sex along the beaches where girls they are subjected to environments where they exchange fish for sex. So it's something that we deal with continually, and in case we get such cases, we support the girls. We have places, we have a program that we are doing empowerment to the girls so that they can, it is mostly based on vulnerability and more so on poverty. If we can support that girl to do something else that can sustain her instead of seeking refuge from a man who maybe will at the end of the day end up not taking her in. If we can support that girl to be financially stable or to get a skill that can be of help to her in future, I think that will be a sustainable intervention from our side. Yeah. So we are offering skills for the girls. And also after we've offered skills, we will be also in a position to support some of the girls with business startup kits that maybe they can be more independent. And in such crisis, they're able to look up on themselves and they don't have to seek refuge from people around.
Okay, Winnie, sorting out the girls' issues is actually quite commendable because it addresses one side of the problem. Are there any programs or any interventions specifically targeting the men so that they don't prey on these young girls?
Yeah, we cannot actually deal with the problem without addressing the key people that we might term them as the perpetrators of the act. So we also deal with men. We've come up with some gender champions also who are men, and mostly being a fishing community who are fishermen who are able to talk about issues of gender violence within the community. And we also use them in our community sensitizations to teach the community on the importance of upholding the rights of women and girls, and why they should refrain from such acts of violence within the community. So we've engaged men in our programs. We've not left them behind because we see them as key in ensuring that our project moves forward. Yeah.
Do you see that this might create gaps in the life of the project, the floods that we see right now? Do you see that things may stop or will not get to the point that you would like them to because of the floods?
Yeah, the floods might have an impact because as we talk now, most of the families have shifted from our area of operation to different areas. So even reaching out to them could be an issue in days to come until maybe when the floods are come to an end. So it could have a problem in our project. But we look forward also to dealing with the problem as it comes. Yeah.
Are there specific interventions that you're running now during this COVID-19? We know that people are suffering, people are out in camps. You've told us about the cases that you're collecting now in terms of receiving feedback. But is there anything that you're proactively doing to assist the community?
Yeah, we have an active gender desk that is based at one of our beaches. It is called Marenga Beach. We have a gender desk there that is very active to receive, to link, and also to refer cases of gender-based violence. We've also been doing a lot of awareness creation within the community, like going around in, like we call them road shows, going around in a vehicle and talking to the community on the importance of prevention of violence against women and girls, and also not keeping away from the COVID-19 directives. We have to also talk to them because this is a crisis and it will come and go, but we will live with the effects that come with the crisis. So we've been on the ground. Also, as a county, we are in the process of developing a county-specific gender-based SCBV policy, sexual and gender-based violence policy. That in times of such crisis, we will be able to have a component of the girls and women in times of crisis, and we will be able to manage them better. Instead of during such activities as they happen, there might be no much rules of how they are put in the camps, but we think that in the policy maybe we can have a component of how to handle women and girls during such crisis.
Indeed. The beaches,
Yeah.
and I'm imagining now that we have all these floods. The issue of saying that you have an office at a beach is no longer practical.
It's not really an office. It's a tent that is based at the beach. That,
Is it
takes
operational
in,
now?
yeah, it is very operational because the beaches are still operational. People are still doing business, although it's not at the height that it is on a normal day when there's no crisis. But they are still operational. And also because many people are not willing to also travel because of the stay-at-home
Orders.
directive. We have a number that they can reach us along the beaches, and in case we have such a case, they report, and we are there to go for the victim, or maybe to go and make an intervention at the community.
Okay. Winning Katha, Gender Officer with DSW, which is the German Foundation for World Population. We thank you very much for speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
all the best
Thank
with all your activities in Budalangi and the area.
Thank you so much too.
Let's take a look at weather, and the conversation continues. We'll try and reach out to local leadership, including the County Commissioner for Busia, to hear what the government is doing to address the plight of the people in Budalangi. Good morning. It's 19 minutes after 9.
Taking a look into Nairobi, still partly cloudy. This is what it's going to look like throughout the day. It's warmed up just a bit to 19. We'll see rains this afternoon with highs of 22, a sprinkle in certain parts of the city already. In Nyeri at 17 degrees, thunderstorms expected for the afternoon. We'll see highs today of 22. Taking a look then into Eldoret, Nakuru, where at 18 degrees, it's going to invite the rain in later with cloudy conditions at 24 the high and lows of 14. In Eldoret at 18 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Highs of 22 with showers expected later. In Kisumu, it's partly cloudy at 23 degrees. Rain coming in later with highs of 28 and lows of 20. Mombasa is mostly cloudy at 27 degrees. The rain will come back. Highs of 28 and lows of 25. In Malindi at 27 degrees, the rain has stopped for now. 27 degrees, we said. Highs of 29 and lows of 26. With the rains coming back in the afternoon. 22 and mostly cloudy in Kampala, and we'll see rain for the greater part of the afternoon with highs of 25 and lows of 19. We'll see the same in Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees right now, where it's partly cloudy, highs of 29 when the rains come in and lows of 24. In Johannesburg, 9 degrees and still hazy condition. Fog is quite low through most parts of the city. We'll see a high of 21 and lows of 7. Wrap things up in Lagos at 28 degrees. It's clear skies for most of the day. It'll open up into an afternoon and an evening of rain with highs of 33 and lows of 26.
Social media is showing us clips of rivers that emanate from the Aberdares all the way that flow into Tana River. And then the Tana River is swollen. The Seven Forks dams all full. So now the Seven Forks dams are spilling off excess water. It's all going down Tana River. This is serious. Triple calamity for people of Tana River. There is floods. There's COVID-19. And our good friends, the locusts, homegrown now. Those three. And now you're talking about addressing this as, the government has its work cut out, clearly.
Definitely.
And how it addresses this is also very important. That feedback that we had from the people of Budalangi, and also you've seen even the same kind of feedback coming from the people of Tana River. Every time we have these problems, the government comes and abandons us. comes, orders us to move out, we move, and then the government forgets, it was supposed to help us. The government's job was just to police, tokeni hapa, go. And after that, any kind of support to bring them back to their feet is not offered. And this is a crucial issue that needs to be addressed as well.
I don't know what. I think an attitude change or an attitude shift is absolutely necessary here, because it can't be over and over again that the same thing plays out and that we'll have relief food for a couple of weeks and then after that it's done. Because yes, the water levels will drop, right? There will be a balance once again. Nature would have raged for a couple of weeks, but it will go down. And unfortunately, as it goes down, it goes with the responsibility that people should have taken on to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Unfortunately, that too is washed away.
Relief food distribution ends when the waters recede.
Yes.
And then you forget that during those floods, people had not grown any crop.
Right.
They don't have any food in their reserves. So you need to continue supporting them for a long time. Is that taken into consideration? No. In terms of now coming to reconstruct and rebuild their own lives, moving back to their homes, reconstructing their houses, what kind of support do they get? You wait for NGOs like the Red Cross to come round, and it's the one that's doing this job. Why is it that we're seeing the Red Cross doing this job? Why is the government? The government's job should be the one that's talking to us and telling us the people who are affected in West Pokot during last year's landslide, they needed to be relocated, they needed to be brought back home. This is what we as the government are doing. Now we're only seeing Red Cross.
I think what the government here does is provide a platform for the multi-agency groups to come and work together, to coordinate, create a conducive environment and give their blessings.
And let the guys who
can actually do the job do the job. Because in my own opinion,
the guys who can do the job is fine, but also these people are mobilizing funds. The government has funds. What is the government doing with its own resources? The resource that we raise as a country. Those people that are being assisted by other donor agencies and donor communities are taxpayers.
They are Kenyans, just like you and I.
Yes.
I think that has always been the elephant in the room. But if you look at it, this is an emergency situation. It needs prompt action. If you let the government, this Kenyan government or the Kenyan government do something or give a solution and actually implement the solution, we see how it goes. We're seeing it with the COVID-19 response, where it is actually an emergency situation. From the word go, since the moment we started hearing the stories from China, everyone was high alert. Even when we were preparing to, we were preparing, it was a matter of when COVID will hit. It was not even if. We're still dilly-dallying and taking our own sweet time. Then we even announced the cases and we're seeing how it goes. So in such a situation as of flooding, where people literally do not have houses. Landslides have swept away houses and everything, including all the livestock that somebody has. If you wait for the government, how long will these people be living under tents? How long will they be living out in the cold with no food, no shelter, nothing? In my opinion, I'm happy that we have these non-governmental organizations, the Red Cross, the UN agencies that have come in to help those people, because at that time, they need immediate help. Now, government needs to tell us where our taxpayers' money is, because that is now what should be responding in Tana River. We're seeing the pictures in Tana River. It's not encouraging. And then this is the situation now where you need people to be in safety. After that, there's the aftermath. People haven't been growing any food. People's houses and livelihoods have gone. What is the plan for them after that?
Let's speak to the Busia County Commissioner, Mr. Joseph Nyeri, who is joining us on the line. Good morning, Bwana County Commissioner.
Morning, John. How are you?
Salama kabisa. Thank you very much for speaking to us. This is a situation room. In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko and Dr. Mercy Korir.
Good morning, Bwana Commissioner.
Good morning.
Morning. Yeah, morning too.
Now, we've been speaking to the community in Budalangi today, and we have also been seeing footage, photos, and hearing the cries of the people in what's happening on the ground. The rivers have swollen. The lake has also decided to start moving back and reclaiming a lot of its land, and people have been affected. What is the national government, through your office, doing on the ground to assist the people?
One, the rake has been having this throwback phenomena since October, November last year. Yes, it has displaced a number of people. The national government has been giving relief food, rice, maize, beans, cooking oil, and Nutropop, which is a supplementary food diet for the under 5.
Mm-hmm.
We've also given, at some instances, sanitary towels.
Mm-hmm.
We have also facilitated in the logistics to evict the flood-affected families. For the last 2 weeks or so, we've also availed boats from the Coast Guard, Marine Police, to evict people from the vastly flooded areas. These are 6 locations affecting about 35,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
We have also been working with the county government to distribute water dispensers for the hand washing, soap, and again availing public health officers and medics to visit them and assess the situation on a regular basis. Yeah.
Do you have the exact number of the people that you are supporting?
Roughly 35,000.
So all the 35,000 have so far received the food rations, for instance?
There are those we have supported in terms of movement to school camps, those that have moved to relatives, and getting people to their homestays can be tricky. Those at the camps have received varying quantities of relief food, maize flour, rice, and all this. But we are looking at upscaling the quantity. You know, the numbers have kept on growing as people marooned in what they considered safe areas keep coming out as flood waters rise. We are upscaling, and this week we expect to get a much bigger consignment to cover everyone and give them something to sustain them a bit longer.
Has the support so far been formulaic, like in terms of looking at a family size and knowing how much you want to give them? Or is it a blanket X kilograms per person?
Well, in this kind of a crisis, you are evicting, you are evacuating people, you are locating them schools, you are assigning them classrooms, you are looking for donations. We have not done that assessment with precision, but we'll be beginning from today working with our partners like the Red Cross so that we know the actual house size that we're dealing with. But we've taken an average of the family size of 6 based on our census population and the figures. That's what we are working with on average, and they have received food. But with proper targeting, we'll be looking at the exact numbers, and food ratio will be issued according to that kind of an assessment.
Bona Commissioner, how long is this going to go on in terms of the relief efforts for food and other things like you've just mentioned?
We are in consultation as a government, and we look at, the area is flooded and waters may not dry up for the next 4 months. These people will be in camps, relocating to other areas where they can seek livelihood. We'll do that, and thereafter, even when they get to their homes, the places they call homes, they will need to start their life again, rebuilding their houses. A number of these are mud houses, and up to roof level, knee level, window level, those mud walls have collapsed. The churches, the health facilities, and other institutions have been affected. There's no crop that will grow and mature for another 3 months. So we are looking at support to these communities for a period of about 8 months to 9 months. And we want to be realistic.
Okay.
Yes.
We look at this being a perennial issue. It happens every year in terms of this flooding. What in your mind is something that needs to be done for a permanent solution to this, so that either one, we don't see the levels of destruction, we don't see destruction to the levels at which we see it, and number two, that we can live with nature coexisting and lives don't get destroyed?
Thank you for that question. There are 2 phenomena affecting Budarangi at the moment. There is the Lake Victoria throwback water, which has submerged a number of villages along the shores of Lake Victoria, in Busia, in Siaya, Homa Bay. The counties bordering the lakes. We may not do much about the lake waters because they are flowing back and they have reclaimed places they may have the waters may have occupied many years ago. But for the River Nzoia, River Yara floods, the government is considering building more raised dikes. The floods this year were much higher to mitigate. It was a mitigation to mitigate the flood waters we have seen. They are more higher than we have had in the past, overtopping the dikes. The dikes will be overtopped, the ones that are existing, and more dikes will be constructed. We have a contractor on site, but we've been having challenge with the same community. We are seeking to help in Siaya and Busia in land acquisition. There are some with inheritance issues and others, so that a canal would be constructed and dikes built, and the government and through NLC has funds to the tune of 5 billion availed for that undertaking, but the contractor is behind schedule by 24 months. We would seek cooperation with the community as we look at permanent or more effective measures.
It sounds like the issue of land acquisition is a thorny issue there, but also you can understand where it's coming from. You're saying, it's about families and families not having agreement on how they want to deal with the subdivision of their land, and therefore how much each person gets. What's the government been doing to support them in terms of even bringing them together and having some conflict resolution?
We have tried ADR mechanisms, bringing in experts to talk to them, to come to a compromise situation, receive the money, apportion it equitably amongst themselves, agree on who the administrator, in some cases where there are succession matters, who the administrator of the estate executors are, so that they get paid. Through our chiefs, we have had sittings with the families. But even as we talk, some have not been very agreeable to move even from there, even in the wake of these floods. Like they have not agreed to receive the money. So this is causing a delay in the implementation of that project, lagging behind by 24 months now. And if we don't do that, it doesn't only affect these families, it affects the 6 locations in Bunyara sub-county and others in Siaya.
But Commissioner, do you think more effort needs to be put by the government to address these issues? Because that dispute resolution will have to happen for the development of these dikes. But 24 months delay is a very long time.
Well, a lot of effort will be put, this is certain. But we also wish that the community sees sense in this development program as their own. It's a win-win situation for everyone if the project is implemented. If it is not implemented, at the end of the day, it will be a loss for many, not just the few people that are against setting up the related issues.
Okay. In some cases, we may be stuck between a rock and a hard place where people in areas that have not been affected are being asked to move, which makes sense. However, the questions that have then arisen is, where do we expect them to go? How would you be able to deal with this when you're saying move? Where should they go?
Let me, first of all, shed light on those areas perceived not to be affected. You will find it's a big lake of flood water surrounding a small tiny village. One, they don't have clean drinking water. They are using aram, chlorine to try to clean up the flood water, the murky brown rookie water. Then their toilets are filling up with the flood water. They cannot get their supplies. If we want to get relief support to them, it is a bit costly. If our partners also want to get there, they can't reach them with ease. And also for health facilities, you are marooned there in your own house, minus the social support amenities. It is therefore imprudent to say, I'm safe, my small village is not marooned. Some other category of people have moved to the top of a dike. We have seen these floods over top and breach some of the dikes. And they think they are safe on top of the dikes in small tapering, porrid and paper built shacks.
Yeah.
And now, if the water levels rise again, they will overtop these dikes, and people could perish in the night. It will be a story of Serkal's idea.
Yes.
It might be too late. We have Bunyara North location. We have institutions, the schools are closed. We have the neighboring Samia sub-county. The institutions are closed. We would have preferred a situation. They move to the race ground and where they can get the support.
Yes.
I was at one of the dike camps, and they're saying, we are now seeing the kids are beginning to have malaria. The mosquitoes are fat, they are big, they are biting hard. To get to treat people there on those safe, considered and unflooded small villages, it can be tricky. We could lose life, and one of the cardinal duties of the government is to save lives. Others are telling us, yes, it is flooded there and here, but I have my cows. I cannot move my cows.
Yeah.
That is my wealth. If I lose my cows, how will I replace them?
Yeah.
I have my furniture. You see, like these seats of mine here, my table there, my cupboard there. If I lose these things, I'm not able to evacuate with them. Then how will I acquire other earthly possessions of fat and nature? We've tried to assuage them that their lives are more
Your
important.
life is more important.
Item. And again, we went there 2 days before the floods, based on the meteorological department advice, and the subsequent day, and talked to those villages based on the historical pattern of the flood.
What you're saying,
So
Wana County
that
Commissioner,
came
what you're saying makes a lot of sense. You know, in terms of people needing to, the need to move is paramount, and it's clear, it's important. However, I'd like to ask you, is there, for example, today a school that you can say the government has moved into this particular school and it has set up a camp, which is clear, these are the people that we can accommodate in this school, this is where cooking is going to take place, these are the toilets, the extra toilets that we are going to put up in this particular place, so that you can go to a community and tell them, we have a place that is ready for you to move. Instead of just telling them there's a school somewhere, you know that school called XYZ, you can move there. But that school has not been primed to accommodate people at this time with the current needs that they have.
Let me use the same example. We tell them there's school XYZ.
Yep.
That school is in existence with a roof, with doors, with power connection, and pizza trains existing. We are at the stage of disaster response. Our mitigation measures having kind of succumbed to the disaster we have.
Yep.
We are at response stage. We will get them to this school, issue them with food, and each family takes care of its needs based on the food given. You may not be able to cook up communally. We already have 60 schools plus one of the campuses there, Masinde Muriro campus there, where we are housing these people. It's a practical example that is there. And those that have moved to these institutions far outweigh the few that are skeptical about this kind of an approach. But we are also doing an assessment of what needs to be brought in, like tapering to decongest the camps. Over and above the water sanitizer, the soap and whatever that has been issued, we are looking at issuing each of these people in the camps with a mask, because we are also in the thick of COVID, to avoid these scenarios of congestion in those camps on the dike and at the school. But getting support to these people as the water levels rise, decrease, and other hazards in the water come up, it can be more hard for those that have not moved.
And I completely understand when you say that, we are responding to a disaster that's unfolding on a daily basis. But I want to still put you on the spot here, because there are schools that are available. They have power, they have classrooms. Maybe some of them have dormitories, others do not have dormitories. But the response that you're hearing from the people is, I've got my belongings. If I'm going to share a classroom with 70 other families, so where am I going to put my seats? Where am I going to put my livestock? Is there a plan for that? And saying, this is a school, we have set aside this area for livestock. If you've got cows, come and put them in this particular pen. We shall organize for how you feed your cows, or how you milk your cows. We shall organize for your chicken. Is there such an elaborate plan, as opposed to just saying, move people into this school and let them go and sort themselves out on a daily basis?
We are not moving them and telling them to sort themselves out on a daily basis. We are moving them there and helping them to settle down. That is a report I have. We have assigned each of our chief or assistant chief 2-3 schools to assess, report, review, liaise with our partners that may bring in donations. For the cows, it would be a bit tricky moving cows in boats at this point in time as you evacuate people. The window of opportunity we had was before the levels of water rose to the levels that they are now, driving the animals on the water levels that were low. Others have struggled to drive the animals out of the place, and they only collapse on reaching the camp or reaching the dry land. It's a bit hazardous trying to evacuate these cows at this point. We've also come up with suggestions. Why don't we evacuate the women and the children, the most vulnerable, the youth who feel energetic, and who can possibly look at these animals on the remaining few patches, take care of these property. When we get them with there needs to be a compromise in times of disaster. And of course, we can't operate from a comfort zone. People in one classroom have agreed, we shall cook from the veranda, we shall spend this way, we shall use one furniture, the rest of us have our furniture safe somewhere. Because if, like, I come with my 3 set of sofa set, 1 set of sofa set, or some seats and stool, the place might also get crowded. How are we involving the community? There is a chairman, a vice chair, helping liaise with the community so that they come there with their in-house rules, how to live as a community. We are doing it through a very participatory way. But I want to say, not everyone finds that a workable solution for them. But we are saying we need to move with everyone. But when this cannot be attained, we move with those that are already buying the idea as we try to persuade, we try to beseech, and we try to beg the rest to see sense in what we are saying. As we also see sense in what makes sense in what they are saying.
Bwana Commissioner, you have a very good idea of what the problem is. What budget are you working with? What are the funds you are working with? And what are the sources in order to help all these people? Because all of these issues that you've raised, people need masks, people need to be evacuated and moved elsewhere. You need to, put up something, feed people. What is the budget you are working with, and what is the source of this funding?
From where I sit, we are applying government funds, which are public funds, to deal with the situation. If it is the relief food, this is centrally acquired, procured in Nairobi and distributed. Rice, maize, cooking oil, stuff like that for national government. I wouldn't say rice has costed this much, but for our funding level, we are using the current funds allocated to us. Not to say this detailed for the flood situation. As a county, we have a disaster committee. We are looking at what to do. In 6 time, you can't say you'll be able to budget knowing the lengthy process that takes when budgeting for public funds. You are able to deal with the situation based on the resources at hand. But moving forward, there will be a budget up to the reconstruction and rehabilitation. At my level, I'll input to this, but of course escalate the rest and share the rest with the county government so that we get it done well and right.
So what are the resources? How much are you looking at? As in, what do you need in terms of resources for you to say, now we think we can do this 75%, if not 100?
Of course, in terms of money, I don't think I'll be possibly able to answer this question. It's not one of those that I thought I would take. But what we need to help this community, for anyone willing to help our flood-affected persons, it would include face masks and also the cloth face mask, because they can be washed and reused, not the surgical masks, which are our one use. There is the need for mosquito nets. There is the need for tarpaulins to decongest the classrooms. Of course, there would be need for soap. There would be need for the specific items to take care of our women clients there, the girl clients. I'm gender sensitive. We would also need people who are capable to offer some psychosocial support, because people are feeling they have lost what they have built over the years. Some have lost mansions, cows, and all this. We need to have people who can help them move through this kind of trying period. Yes.
Joseph Nyeri, the Busia County Commissioner, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best as you coordinate the efforts of saving lives and saving livelihoods of the people who've been affected.
Thank you so much for your time and the air allocation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pass our regards to your officers on the ground.
We'll do so. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. The Situation Room, 12 minutes to 10. Let's now open up the phone line so you can chime in and give your thoughts on what you've heard this morning. 0719-012-600. You can also post your comments on social media. Spice FM KE, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also where we are live streaming as well on YouTube. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Police presence on Juja Road this morning, and people are trying to get into Eastleigh through Juja Road. It's not going to happen because there's a lockdown. In and out is what it means for Eastleigh.
But what if I want to go to Huruma?
Through Eastleigh?
That's the road.
Sorry.
I want to go to Kariobangi.
It's not going to happen.
So?
Sorry. There's a
But
lockdown.
Huruma is not Eastleigh. It's
know.
not locked down.
But you want to go through Eastleigh to get to Huruma.
No, I want to use the road. I don't want to go through Eastleigh.
But
I just
the
want
road
to
is
use
through
Juja
Eastleigh,
Road.
is it not?
So where do you want people to go?
There must be an alternative. There always is. Use the alternative.
Now, this is what should
what
be
we are
happening.
saying.
This is what should
So
be
now
happening.
it's causing
Direct
traffic.
people clearly.
People are
Because if
standing
I
on-
don't know the alternative to get to
Lonely
Huruma,
grey
and this
areas.
is where I want to go, tell me. Don't just put a sign there. Say, you want to go to Huruma, use this road.
People are now standing on the side of the road, not maintaining social distance. There's traffic that's backed up all the way back because people felt that they could somehow use that road to get through. Heavy police presence, so it's affecting everything else that we're looking at now.
I think this is a point where police should not look at everybody as an enemy or everybody who is trying to use that road as somebody who does not have a brain. Just listen to them.
And let
Because
them through.
this road is not to Eastleigh. It's not Juja Close. It is Juja Road. It heads somewhere beyond Eastleigh.
But with the police, like when the president or any dignitary wants to, go somewhere, they line the whole road. Can the same happen in Georgia? So that people make sure they are going elsewhere and not into Eastleigh. I mean, there are alternatives to everything.
It's possible, but in this case, I don't think that reason is going to take the day today.
There's no negotiation for today.
Nope.
As I say,
Sort yourself out.
all of these rules, measures, depends on what the police interpret of it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. What are
Okay.
what?
That's
This is
the
it.
highlight right now.
That's
This
the
is
highlight.
This is it. You want to go to Kariobangi, to Huruma. You want to go
Don't use Juja.
beyond. Don't
use
Juja
Juja Road.
Okay.
Get
Jisort.
another route.
Jisort.
Jipange.
All right. 0719-012-600. All right, 0719-012-600. Let's go to the phone lines. Paul is
Spice up your
speaking
life.
to us from Kitale this morning. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for calling in. This is a Situation Room. Give us your thoughts.
I just wanted to appreciate what you are saying and what you are discussing. It is very important.
Mm-hmm.
It is very important for the people you are discussing. And then the other thing that allow me to say that we are not getting so well.
Sorry, Paul, we didn't get that.
Yeah.
We didn't hear that. Say again.
Hatuwapati vizuri.
Wapi? In Kitale area.
Kitale.
All right, we'll pass this on to our technical team to address that.
Yeah, waongeze mawimbi kasi.
Asante. Thank you, Paul, and have a good day.
Same.
0719-012-600. I'm still on that issue of, yes, there are alternative roads to every place. This is the morning. You are dealing with matatus that have a specific route that they have been licensed to use to go to a specific place. Matatus that operate those areas of Huruma and Kariobangi, they have a designated road that they are supposed to use.
Now let's continue.
Have those matatus been told, use this alternative route?
I understand.
You cannot tell those matatus, find it. No, they'll be arrested and impounded.
Staccato stance.
Yes.
In this case, extraordinary situation. It's not the order of the day. This is a different situation that people have been having to embrace, unfortunately. So, is there, like Dr. Korea was saying, is there an alternative route that you can use to get where you're going?
Many.
Use that one for today.
Or is there an alternative that the police or the security agencies can use to facilitate people to move? If it's there, let's use it.
The Ministry of Transport, the NTSA, is the one that licenses matatus. It's the one that tells them this is a South Sea matatu from town has a specific route that it must use, a specific road that it must use. If you close down South Sea, you must tell those matatus now. And this is where NTSA comes in. Now, for this period, this is the route that we're going to allow you to use. If you haven't been told that and you're a matatu operator, you are not going to start giving yourself some solutions. You'll find cops on the other side and you're, where in the Juja route.
And then it becomes a whole other problem.
It becomes a whole other issue.
But just what is needed is proper communication and giving people diversion. This reminds me of when the roads are being constructed.
Yeah.
If you lived on Thika Road, if you're on Waiyaki Way, and you are traveling, I remember once going up country, the road was clear. Coming back, things had changed, and there was no signage that you have changed, you've diverted, nothing. You just, usually the trick is just follow the matatu. Because the matatu are up to date with the road changes. So it's the same situation here. You need to just indicate and communicate and say, okay, now we've closed even this section of Juja Road. If you want to go to X, use A plus B. If you want to go anywhere, use an alternative route. Or we shall facilitate you crossing to the other side. So it's just a matter of communication, which I think we are poor with. And we've seen from this COVID response that the government is worse with leaving grey areas and people leaving room for improvement. And people do their own improvements in there. The security agencies do their own improvements in there. At the end of the day, what they communicated versus what we are doing on the ground are totally different. And that's why we see the CS is always frustrated by Kenyans.
We've talked about these things all the time. When the government is coming up with measures, they don't sit down to simulate and ask, what else? What could go wrong? What haven't we thought of? Juja Road is not just a small road. This is a main artery into that region. It's like saying close off Jogoo Road, because you don't want people to go to Kaloleni. You forget that Jogoo Road serves a huge population, people that need to go all the way to Kangundo. Jogoo Road is the road to Kangundo. You cannot just wake up and say, close Jogoo Road.
This is the problem with not having a plan. Because yes, you understand the center of the thing that you're trying to sort out at that moment, without thinking that there are several tributaries feeding into this thing, and you have to deal with each and every one of them at the same time. It's like a surgeon going to cut off a tumor without realizing there are blood vessels which feed another healthy part of the body, and that you have to clip that to stop the whole thing from bleeding out. Because this is a potentially dangerous situation that you have here. People are going to keep coming, and at some point they're going to get tired and they're going to explode and say, look, by hook or by crook, we're going to get through here. Then what are we going to do?
And the government will react by saying people want to come into
in the city again.
But
people don't want to go
I
into
don't
it.
think
People
it's
want
a
to go
lack
elsewhere.
of a plan. Because remember on Monday, was it Monday or Tuesday, where the CS said, we may have more measures. So clearly,
already
they were
working on
thinking
something.
about it. They were working on something. So I just think this is not a well thought out plan. They
Let's-
didn't think through it.
Let's
A to
take the
Z.
final phone call for the morning. Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, hi guys. I know it's ending,
Yes.
so I'm going to be very brief. And I really salute you guys who stay in Nairobi. you know me. Even if you pay me, I can't stay in Nairobi.
Mm.
If you told me to pay me that I stay in Nairobi,
Yeah.
I can't actually. So actually, just congratulate you, and you are doing good work.
Yep.
And let the people in Nyeri actually try to abide by the rules that have been given by the government and Ministry of Health,
Mm-hmm.
so that we try to actually beat this thing together.
Mm.
And I wish you see the old man, the bearded man, Mr. Morim.
Mwalimu.
Mwalimu.
Mm.
Yeah, Morim man.
He's hearing you. He has heard you, and he has heard your salams. He'll be back.
Pass my regards, and we are missing you. Let him come back.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Zachary. Say hello to everybody in Nakuru.
Waithera included.
Waithera.
Right there.
Of course,
Starting with
we'll
Waithera.
start with her.
Start with that.
Yes.
Sure, thank you.
Cheers. Coming to the end of the show. So tomorrow we'll be back here again, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be looking at various other matters. The flight to Gwangju apparently was postponed. It did not leave today. It's leaving tomorrow to come back. So it's. I think we can also find out how many of the 126 or so Kenyans that we've been told by the ambassador have managed to pay for this flight.
To this, yeah.
Or what's the fate of those that want to come back home.
And if the numbers have increased because now that quarantine will be paid for by government.
Yes. Yes. Today's proverb, a chick that'll grow into a cock can be spotted the very day it hatches. A chick that'll grow into a cock can be spotted the very day that it hatches. This basically means that this is just for HR people. You just look at someone and you can tell their talent. You can see from the character. Yeah. From the very beginning. Join us again tomorrow. Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Dr. Marcy Korir say goodbye in wholesale.
Goodbye.
In wholesale. You understand Kenyan lingo. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.